Okay, good evening, everyone, and thank you for your patience. Just like to get started into tonight's agenda, please. And so, Council, we do have quite a full agenda as well as some new business and supplementary information. So I'm looking for approval of the agenda with inclusion of the new business supplementary items on the yellow pages. Moved by Councillor Parkinson and seconded by Councillor Pearson. Any questions on the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor? None opposed? Any opposed? Nope. Motion's carried. Thank you. We have adoption of minutes and minutes of the regular meeting of Council from May the 23rd. Move adoption by Councillor Parkinson. Seconded by Councillor Pearson. Any errors or corrections or questions? Councillor Ray.
Sorry. Which minutes are we in? Sorry, I was just making some notes.
May the 23rd.
Okay, so on page 9 of our package, 9 of 10, no, sorry, page 15, under number 13, Council and CAO verbal reports, bullet 4, under myself, Councillor Ray. Touring 2 radio site locations. It wasn't in the West Shore, it was in Victoria and Esquimalt. And I had referenced the Belmont, so that's why it may have been taken that I was talking West Shore, but it's Belmont House.
Okay.
So it's Victoria and Esquimalt. Thank you.
Under 13.1. Okay, we got that change. Anything else from members of council? See none. Call for approval of the minutes. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay. May the 29th special council meeting minutes. Moved adoption by Councillor Parkinson, seconded by Councillor Pearson. Are there any questions, corrections, or comments? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of adoption? Opposed? None opposed. Okay, and then we have the minutes of the Committee of the Whole for information, it should be. Someone like moved by Councillor Casper, seconded by Councillor Pearson. Any questions on the Committee of the Whole minutes? Corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, thank you. So, yes, Councillor Ray.
Yes, sorry to interrupt, Your Worship. My apologies as I was trying to get organized. I was wondering if there's any way that we can amend the agenda and bring matter 13.2 to after the delegations. That would allow Ms. Rice to leave the meeting rather than having to stay through the entire agenda.
Okay. Is that that's the only item that you're here for? Okay. So I think we can do that. So look, are you making that motion,
yes,
Councillor Ray?
Yes, yeah, 13.2.
Okay. So move 13.2, and you said you wanted to add it after
the delegations or after the public input, whichever Your Worship feels would be better.
I'd like to move it after the public question and comment, if that's okay, just because there may be some comments from the public here. So we'll put that there. So that's been moved by Councillor Ray, seconded by Councillor Pearson. All those in favor of moving that item? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. Okay, thank you for catching that. Okay, so we will move into our delegations, of which we have 5 minutes allotted for each one. If the speaker could take note of the microphone or the timer that is counting down, we would appreciate it. And there's 5 minutes. So thank you, Ms. Brooke, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you to Mayor and Council for inviting this presentation. It's in response to the Mayor, I believe, mentioning a few weeks ago at Council that a staff report was coming forward about advertising made by the district in local media. And so the point of tonight's presentation, and I commend you on your curiosity on this because it's not a cut and dried thing, as you know, and advertising is more than a budget decision. So quick background. On myself, publishing for 9 years in Sooke, a 25-plus year in career in journalism, publishing, editing, and I'm a public relations professional. And tonight we'll be looking at sort of the comparison as well between journalism and public relations. And I've been a leader and a trendsetter in journalism and publishing during my years, including the early days of the internet when HTML was new, and I sort of had a group of people where we learned how to do that. And I was one of the founding directors of the Professional Editors Association of Vancouver Island. That was a long time ago. So newspapers and public relations kind of go hand in hand. I want to clear up about newspapers. The word paper is a little bit challenging these days because there are print newspapers, but it's also really a news service. And so that can be done in print and online. And online it's fractured out into various ways, as you know, websites, social media, blogs, and so on. So journalism, as you know, is writing up what's happening about changes in the community, and that includes news articles, photojournalism, editorials, bulletins, and ads. So public relations in the municipal context is about promoting your corporation, your district. And as such, you're delivering your information to a jurisdictional audience, in other words, to people in Sooke and the way you want them to hear it. So that's PR. That's different than journalism, which tries to look at the broader picture. And utilizing news media is just one part of that delivery. You have your own website. There's other ways that you meet the community. So again, we'll still focus on the media part. So comparing your corporate website and news media, because there's been some talk about, and you've probably seen ads in some of the media about go to sooke.ca and you'll get everything you need, that no one website can replace what the full community would like to know about their community. So a corporate website is, a here-to-stay thing, has been for well over a decade and a half. It gives factual, technical, and legislative or official information about your district, but it's not accessed by all markets. You'd probably, if you took a tour around Sooke, you'd probably find there's people who, I'm not even on the internet, you might get from seniors, or the youth probably think, that's the last website I'll go to, kind of thing. So you're really still only getting a certain market with that. And the news media, by comparison, just by definition, we have target audiences. So we're not all reaching the same one audience. And that's something that I feel that the district, that any municipality can take advantage of. And the difference with journalism, as you know, is that for principled journalism, will do their fact-checking, and that there's historical perspective or situational context. In other words, we've been around long enough to kind of compare, that happened 2 years ago, and that's why it's different now, that kind of thing. So it gives sort of an educational edge to the reader. And what I mean by instinctively available online is that if somebody wants to know what's happening, probably not their first instinct is to go to the district website, is I'll check what the media is saying about this. So the internet makes that easy. And unfortunately, the challenge for media even is that Googling and media are two very separate things, but Googling is just a technique. Okay, Council appears to want to take progressive steps in many areas. You've done your, the tanker traffic and other things where Sooke has really made an edge in the BC political lexicon. And here's another one where I feel you can make a difference, is that if Sooke takes the leadership to show that beyond the Local Government Act, which is out of date, which says that the only place to put ads that are statutory ads is in the paper, the local paper, that was written before the days of the internet. So there are many ways to reach your audience, and if that's the goal, to reach the whole audience, then you need to use that plethora of media that's out there. So looking at the time here, municipal public marketing, you send out your news releases, you send out your legally required postings like your annual report, and then there's ads and bulletins, and those can be placed in various places. I've come up with a little key phrase to remember, CMA. Communications is the goal. Marketing is the strategy, and advertising is just one technique within that. So it's not about, we're going to market something, let's just plunk an ad. It's a lot more complex than that. And public relations, by comparison, is knowing your audience. You have a goal, and I know you have a communication strategy as a district. Then you come up with a strategy to roll that out. That's your website, media, and at events. And then the techniques of advertise only one of those. And there's social media that you use, your own Twitter feed, your own news releases, your own public meetings, and so on. So the point here is that advertising is not an extra, but it is an important component part. And it's not really disposable. And I've heard some people say, oh, well, we don't want to give you a donation. It's never a donation. It's a service. The media today is providing an information service. And with the ads, those are also placed in a timely fashion, especially online as, say, an event comes up. And a mix of advertising is the key, not just one location and not just one type of ad. And it's not even just ads. It can be like a written message that goes on Facebook or something like that. The idea of putting it in a box is that's old school as well. So when placing your advertisements, I just tried to give some guidelines here, is know your target audience. That's PR 101. It's like, who are you talking to? And so your message may not be for every resident. I mean, maybe at property tax time it is, but there's a lot of other messages, like, say, your emergency preparedness seminars. I mean, you hope everyone comes, but you know that you probably want to reach families maybe with one of them, or people who are new to Sooke, who haven't heard about how to, the tsunami information, for example. So it'll take a bit of work, but I invite you to get to know all your media providers and find out what services we offer and what target audiences we reach. And then you choose. It's like shopping, and you want to make the best choices, and there shouldn't be exclusion of any, and it would be just wise on your part. It's good shopping to, make sure you get a full basket of nutrients in your media kit. So I just wanted to quickly address the political versus the staff part of this. Reaching the public, as you know, is the overall responsibility of mayor and council. And you're the ones that set the communication strategy. You're the ones that, as politicians, are recognizing the different audiences that are within your community, their interests, and you're the ones who are out there meeting people and in touch with the flow and change of that. And then simply on a business level, you don't want to be in any part of the community, I would think, not excluding any businesses that are trying to operate and make a living in your town. Also, then the mechanics of delivering the message, that's done by staff. So when you get your staff report, I just encourage you to remember the part about how the Local Government Act is being followed to the letter, but it's not necessarily in the service of the district anymore. I mean, it's there, and that would have to be a legislative change. But then that leads to the well, there's sort of one slide in between here. Most municipalities, just as a note, have a communications person. I know this is a small and growing municipality, but I checked online today, and Langford, Colwood, Esquimalt, Victoria, Saanich, and of course the CRD have their own media staff who do corporate communications and who this is their full-time job. I mean, it's not something you can do off the side of your desk to really properly market a municipality. And years ago, I heard that it was one politician said, oh, but I'm the one that needs to talk to the media. It doesn't replace what the mayor and council says. Like, you're still the politicians. This is the person who does your grunt work, the research on issues, and you're the one that gets to decide what gets told, and just the mechanics of organizing news conferences and photo ops and all of that. I mean, it just takes a real load off of the council members and the individual politicians to have a staff person do that. So there are restrictions in the Local Government Act, I think, as media see it. And so, so I would just encourage, if it would be possible, to go to UBCM with a motion to ask that the Local Government Act be changed in terms of the definition of what is delivering a message to the community, that it's not dependent entirely now on the local newspaper, which is how it's defined. So that would show Sooke as enhancing public engagement for all municipalities in BC, which I think is pretty cool. And it wouldn't restrict municipalities anymore to force you to spend what might be a limited advertising budget in one area. You could spread it around at your discretion to where you think it serves your community best. And in that way, I feel that residents and taxpayers are better served. So in quick summary, media has changed thanks to the internet. I put thanks in quotation marks. It's made it a real rough ride for the journalism industry over the last 10 years, as you know. And newspapers are not about paper, they're a news service. And journalism seems to have to be redefined these days, which is very surprising, given fake news. And people think that if they Google and the first thing that comes up at the top is the news, that's a challenge for journalists. And using a variety of different delivery models will assure that the District of Sooke is seen in the community pretty much everywhere if you do it right. So I feel there are gaps right now. Like there are people who say, "Oh, I didn't hear about that meeting" or whatever. I mean, you're never going to get it 100% right, but I think that there are ways to kind of start filling those gaps. So thank you for your time on that.
Great. Thank you very much, Ms. Brooke. We appreciate that, and as well as the handouts that you provided to us as well.
If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Any questions from anyone? No? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving to our second delegation, 7.2 West Coast Road Property Strata Plan for Mr. Herb Haldane from Haldane Homes. And if you could also please introduce the individual with
Herb
you.
Haldane, 3118C, Otter Point Road, and this is the applicant here.
Julie Pedneault.
I'm not really sure at this point why we're a delegation. We came here a few weeks ago as a delegation to discuss this whole process, and unanimously council voted for us to come through with our application process as soon as possible. And there was also talk about whether a legal opinion would be sought and so on about the zoning, because my surveyor, licensed BC land surveyor, said that he didn't see any problems with the zoning requirements that were applicable and so on. So we put in an application, came forward through the district, and up to this point here filled out everything on the application that was expected of us so we could get in front of council. But we seem to have hit a wall with trying to get in front of council to get a vote on this. At this point here, a legal opinion was sought by staff even after it was said that you didn't want a legal opinion. And I think what the criteria here is that we're trying to come up with a reason for this not to happen for some reason. I don't understand why. If we went to rezone this property so that it could be subdivided, and that's what we'd have to go through, a rezoning in order to be able to subdivide this property, we'd still be in the same predicament where we wouldn't be able to subdivide because we have to have a common driveway. The highways will not let us have a second access off of West Coast Road. We would have to have one. So no matter what, we have to create a common property for both places to be able to pull off of West Coast Road and to be able to share. So it would still inadvertently become a strata no matter what we do. In this case, with the strata conversion, because the house meets the standard size for a detached suite, we were allowed to build a second home on the property. The second home will be the second residence, and we don't want to do a strata conversion where we split the property in half through a strata process and create a common area. And there's some mapping that we dropped off that shows a common parking area, common turnaround, so that both people can turn around properly and go out onto Sooke Road forward instead of backing it onto West Coast Road. At this point, we're just looking for some sort of movement or where we can go from here. I can come at this delegation every 2 weeks if that works, but I'd like to get a vote on whether you guys are okay with a strata conversion, as you are the approving officer for this.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Haldane. I know that at the last meeting that was council's direction was directing you to do the application, and strata conversions per our policy come to council. They don't come frequently, so that's why I think it's the case of, okay, when this happens, what does the process look like to us? And then my understanding is information was received by the acting mayor, which then I think is the mapping or the layout that is attached to your delegation, if I'm not mistaken. That shows the layout, the revised strata plan, I think is what was submitted, that was subsequently put through to council. And so that's where it's the case of, okay, where do we go? And that was put forward by West Coast Design and Development Services. So perhaps, as this did come through the acting mayor, I know that the application, as I understand it, has been received by staff. And so just in terms of process-wise, what did you have in mind?
Sure. So last week I went and met with staff and tried to figure out the process of how we go about this. And unfortunately, it is another policy we need to add to our list of things we need to look at. The policy is not very clear as to how the application process is made. All our policy says is that we are the governing body. So the interpretation that a staff member and I came up with, that it was probably best that this applicant bring his application to council and then we proceed that way, rather than, because staff, and it's a odd situation because staff is not the approving authority for strata conversions. All the approval comes from this table. So we just felt, to keep it simple, the application should come to this table, discussion comes to this table, and at the end, a decision. So I guess my question back to you then is, do you have, I sort of was expecting some information or the application to come forward with tonight. So on the strata conversion policy that we have, excuse me, I received 2 emails that I forwarded on to staff. One was the strata plan, and then...
And the other one was from an engineering firm that did a takeoff on the pre-existing house. And in your strata conversion policy, it talks about the pre-existing dwelling to be good for at least 10 years and so on. So they did a complete inspection. They had some small remedies that they want us to do on the place. And I sent in a copy of that to yourself for the application process, and everything else on that application has been completed. So at this point, we're just looking for direction with whether or not there's an appetite to do a strata conversion on this property. So.
Okay, so then just adding my own comment then before everyone else adds comment. I think it would just be incumbent on us to make sure that whatever recommendations, I just pulled up the the engineering document, and it seems so odd that we would be the one to make sure that these deficiencies have been met, but the way the policy is laid out, we are the ones to be sure of that. So I'll just look for comment from the rest of council. Sorry
if
about
you
my
read
voice.
through the engineering report, it says that all things have been met, all the criteria for a house to last at least 10 years and so on. So that was there's a summary at the end there that states that they're guaranteeing this house has a 10-year life expectancy or more. So.
Okay, but has that flown through to staff? Because that second piece of information is not a part of the materials. And so that's where at least every piece that we receive as a council to make a decision on should be together so that the public understands how we're making decisions. All we have in our package is just the one document that I can see. I'll turn to Councillor Pearson, please.
Okay, so through your worship to the applicant. So where are you at in the process now? I'm kind of maybe a little bit lost or a little bit behind because I thought this step that we're doing tonight seemed like it was already done to me.
Well, we originally went through the criteria of trying to join the 2 units together with a common wall.
Right.
And what we ran into there was no definition for common wall in our zoning bylaw. There's no definition for common wall in the BC Building Code. So it states in there that a duplex must be one over top of the other or side by side with adjoining by a common wall. But we don't have any common wall definitions anywhere. So at this point, I talked to the surveyor. We went over the stuff. He said, well, why does it even have to join at all? So I said, well, we can apply under it not joining at all. Because people do strata conversions on bigger properties where they have 2 dwelling units on the same property and they don't touch or they don't join. And realistically, when it comes down to it, there's no reason why we should care whether they join or don't join anyway. We're looking for affordable housing options. You're looking for different criteria. If you take all of our multifamily zones, they all say we can do cluster dwellings, which is detached duplexes, detached 3plexes, detached 4plexes. You can do separated houses. So if we're okay with that in all of our multifamily zones, then why the criteria in just a duplex by itself has to be joined together, I'm not really sure why that is. But the whole idea here is to have some flexibility in what we can build or have for houses. And this is one way of taking an old house, having enough money to put into it, because the renovation on this old house is going to be upwards of $120,000, $140,000 when all the smoke clears. Well, you have to have a way for that to be worthwhile to do that, which building a new house on the property can help, because you're spending all the money on the new house. You can use the same drywallers, same electricians, plumbers, and so on to try and cut some costs and lower the costs. And we want our old housing stock to be remediated and fixed up and last longer than it would normally last anyway. So
just if I may, a question then is that, so with the as I look at this diagram, the existing small suite is the existing home that is being refurbished.
Yes,
And then there's the new home under construction, which would be the secondary one.
correct.
And that's why there was no need to have a wall, because I don't understand what that,
Well, we built a foundation wall to join the two units together, but it can be used as a retaining wall for different soil levels on the property anyway.
I see, but okay, so that's probably the line, because
Yeah.
they're not physically in touch with
No.
each other at all. They are completely separate.
Just a concrete wall, which is,
Okay, so in both cases though, then you have, so this is where you've submitted the application to staff, and then some additional information has come through,
Yeah.
and then there's building permits on both of these.
just on the new house.
On
old
the new house, because the small one hasn't started yet.
The
refurbishment.
small house there, we did electrical upgrade, we did insulation, stuff that doesn't require a building permit.
Oh, I
Structurally,
see, okay.
we didn't have to do anything structural to it, nothing by BC Building Code standards, but we
Okay.
did structural things to the old house to make sure that everything would last longer.
Okay, and
so
that's-
on. And that's what the
that's-
engineer came for. And
Is coming forward with his stuff. Okay, so I'll go back. Councillor Pearson, you to follow up, and then Councillor Ray, please.
Yeah, yes, thank you, and to just echo some of the comments, and this is the, I've had a chance a couple of times now to tour this project, and I've talked to the owner of the project, and this common wall thing is not an issue for me personally, and it's very well done. It's taking a house that was probably built, a long time, and we've all driven by it, and it's actually refurbished it to a point where it's improving it, and it's improving our rental stock in Sooke. I heard a story today that somebody put a suite up for rent, and 14 people showed up for rent in Sooke. So these are the kind of things that we're hearing, and rent is just about impossible to get anywhere. So this is an improvement in our downtown core. So I want to move this along as fast as we can, because this is a really good project in our downtown core, and the discussion around the getting lost around this common wall isn't where we need to be as a council. I think that what my opinion is I think we need to look at what the project is delivering to Sooke, as opposed to focusing on the little intricacies that are buried in there. So, anyways, I'll be. I'm not sure what we need to do tonight, because
I
this was
think
done.
in the case, like there's different moving, is that we don't have all the information on tonight's agenda. So the council can do a couple of things. You can ask then that the application that's been submitted, as well as the engineering letter that we're hearing about, and this come to the next meeting and give approval, or you can give approval tonight. But it's just the case that all we have in front of us is this one sketch.
Right. But I read the letter somewhere.
Well, it could have come through
the
email,
engineer.
but it hasn't come through to the
Gotcha.
agenda, which means it hasn't come forward through to the public either,
Okay.
right? So then it's the case of, I hate using that word transparency, but in this case, how are you making your decision? You're making it on materials that are not publicly available. That's just my criticism of that, and it's no disrespect to anyone. It's just the case of how are you getting to where, because looking back, if we're seeing other projects like this come forward, it'll be very difficult to piece together what happened tonight, because not all the information is here when you go and look at it. It's in various inboxes. Councillor Ray?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. And I think I agree with Councillor Pearson. I think it meets a lot of demand and just what Mr. Haldane had spoken about. And I'm not disputing the challenges in our community with housing. It's a good project. I was there today, late afternoon, in the back there looking. But making a decision for me, I have to do it within the bylaw, and I have to do it within the rules that I understand. And what I'm hearing, as we've heard many times at the council table, is often about definitions and what determines what. When I read the definition of duplex, it means a building in which 2 dwelling units. So then I go to the dwelling units. What defines a dwelling unit? And I don't, in my interpretation, I don't see the definition of a dwelling unit in what I see in this piece of paper. And I don't know enough about strata conversions. I was not on the land use committee in my first time, so I'm learning all the time. Hence why I had asked that we get a legal opinion to help me understand the legalities of this information. Because what I see is if we don't have the full picture, and if this is good to go, then fine, I'm behind you. But the problem is that when people come here and come to speak to us and say, well, you know, it happened 5 years ago. You guys did it before, or another council did it before. If it's not right, I don't think we should be doing it, because then it sets for 2 years from now, somebody's going to come before us and say, well, you know, Mr. Haldane was here 2 years ago and you guys agreed to it. So I just don't feel I have enough information to make an informed decision. My take on this, I totally agree in terms of the definition of a common wall. You get on Google, you get common wall, you get party wall, you get all sorts of stuff. And so I need a full package. I need the information to make sure that if I'm going to make a decision, that decision's well informed. So it's no disrespect to you. It's just my interpretation of what the definitions say is not the same as others on this council, nor than Mr. Haldane.
Well, I
Okay,
hope there's no interpretation. It should be either.
Mr. Haldane, I have a councillor. There's a speaking order.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Parkinson?
I would like to move that staff bring the information and the permits to the next council meeting for council to make a decision on this.
So you would like staff to bring the application and and any further information to the next council meeting. Is there a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Ray. So we have a motion on the floor, and that is that all the information come to the next meeting. Councillor Berger, speaking to the motion, please.
Yes, I just have a quick question about the motion. Does staff have all the required information? Because like I said, once I went and met with staff, we sort of went back and forth, and it wasn't super clear on how the application process was to be made. I know there's an application that's been filed, but I'm just making sure that everything is in its totality.
My understanding is that it was, and I've not had a call otherwise to state there's anything further, so.
Okay.
Okay, I'll direct that to staff, please. Mr. Howitt, please.
Your Worship, I do not have anything related to the building or the existing building and the code compliance with that building.
So pardon me, so in terms of that is the existing small suite, the building that is getting refurbished is the one that you don't have any information on.
That's correct, but just listening to council members, apparently there is something out there. I haven't received it, and I don't think my staff has.
Okay, so Mr. Haldane or Ms. Pedneault, is that you referenced the letter that came from your engineer where everything was, that is the letter, that email that was sent to council then?
Correct.
Okay, so then that's where this piece then with the next meeting can include that as well, and then staff will have that. Okay. Councillor Berger, then Casper on the motion, please.
Yeah, just one final comment. Just as a side, I was reading the email as I was sitting here, so I forwarded it to both of you. But then also, just for our own sort of clarification, because we sort of went away from viewing these two homes as a duplex and now we're viewing them as a strata conversion, the definitions that fall within the allowable use of duplex don't really apply anymore. Now we're looking at two homes and making them their own strata, which essentially a strata just means that they have to have common property. Well, as Mr. Haldane said, and we all know, Highway 14 and the province won't allow anybody to have new access, so that regardless of what decisions we make, they have to share a driveway. So that instantly makes it a strata.
Nope, that makes sense. Councillor Casper?
I was just trying to look up that email. I'm of the view that the least amount of regulatory burden that is placed on people trying to build housing in this community is the best thing that this council can do. And I support the strata conversion approach so that, number one, you don't have to go through the approving officer, you don't have to go through the process of a subdivision and the onerous requirements that take place there. This is a very simple way of creating two registered legal entities with land titles. And it gives the ability to accommodate, in my mind, affordable rental stock if that's what is being chosen by the applicant. Our policy is very clear. There should be no doubts in it whatsoever. The staff are to review the application and we are the deciding body. It's laid out very clearly in the provincial legislation too. So, this is a very simple, streamlined process in many respects, and I'm of the view that I don't want to see this motion create more burden and paperwork which will stymie something like this from happening, either this time or in the future. Because I'm actually, kind of fed up. I'm fed up with the time delays. I'm fed up with the fact that, we gave specific instructions for the applicant to actually bring forward the application. I falsely assumed that the email that came, which included the certification of an engineer, I saw the stamp. Boom. This individual, a qualified professional, and there's no one within our organization that has the authority to override that engineer's qualifications. We stand by what engineers submit all the time. And so I would hope that if this motion is approved, that it comes in a very timely fashion.
Okay, the motion does have the next regular council meeting, so that's 2 weeks. And so when we receive the first delegation, really it's 4 weeks from start to finish, and I hope that's not completely unreasonable. It's just the case of tying everything together. So then I think it's all in one place. So we'll have the sketch, we can have the application, we can have the engineer's report, and even include the policy, and then it's all together, and I think that would just make it complete. So is there any more discussion on the motion? And then I think going forward, as these come forward, because I think we will see more in the future, at least we're starting to develop a process which I think highlights everything, and that's really what we need to do. And then we can move them faster because we have something to go on, and it doesn't leave people in the dark. That's all. So I think that's reasonable. We have a question from staff to our acting CO, please.
Yes, Your Worship. I'd just like some clarification on the motion in regards to what you're looking for from staff.
Okay, all I'm looking for then for you to put together at the next meeting is the motion from tonight and its outcome, the application that was submitted to the district office, copies of, say, the building permit that we hear about that's under construction, the letter from the engineer that was sent, and the sketch that was attached to the delegation. And then if anything else comes forward, if council receives something, then send it forward to staff immediately, and I think that'll complete it. And if the applicant has anything further that they would like to add, referencing the point about MOTI not allowing a second driveway is, I think, very critical and what's leading to this. There's talk about rental stock, but as a strata, you could sell both. It doesn't necessarily have to be rental. I mean, that's completely, it's an option, but it doesn't have to be, right? I think that's doesn't need to tie you in any way that it has to be a rental. It's an option that's available. And I think that would, unless council is looking for something else. Councillor Ray?
I think what it's going to mean is I'm going to have to do some of my own homework. I take, with all due respect to Councillor Casper, I do take exception to some of the comments. It's not that easy for me. I don't do this as part of my job. This has very rarely come before council while I've sat here. So I don't think it's all that easy for me to make a decision without the proper information to guide me.
Okay. Back to Mr. Howitt, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to point out that what we've received to date, and yet I haven't seen the engineering, so I'll put that package together, but what we've received to date is just a preliminary application. Is council looking for a final application? Because that would require the proponent to hire the surveyor to do the necessary work. And I was just wondering if that would be ready by, I don't know whether you're going to give approval in principle or consider approval in principle at the next council meeting or an approval.
Okay, that's an interesting point. We asked for a completed application, and then there's mention of a survey already. So is that an additional piece that you're able to provide?
Well, we won't get a surveyor to survey it unless it's a go. So.
Oh, I see.
The drawing that you have is a proposal?
the drawing that we have is a proposal, so I think that just needs to be in mind. Okay, follow up, Mr. Howitt? Okay, go on.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship.
Yes.
I would also like to point out that the preliminary plan that's been submitted doesn't show the property in its entirety. The proponent does have an application in for a subdivision of 2 lots on the parent property. The way it's drawn here right now, that subdivision would have to be completed first, or it would have to be included into the Strata proposal itself. It doesn't matter to us which way you want to do it, but one has to come before the other.
Yeah.
Okay, that just went over my head.
Well, the property itself, will give you some clarity, is a little over 2,000 square meters.
Okay,
So we're dividing the property in half. So there'll be a 1,000 square meter lot on the back of the property. And that was an application put in probably
January, I believe.
January.
okay.
So we're at 5 months for that.
So do you want that wrapped up at this?
That will get wrapped up before anyway. I mean, the way the survey takes and land titles and all that stuff, that piece will be completely subdivided off before this application moves to the next level. And it's the same survey company, so he won't, the Island Land Surveying won't push this application through until that subdivision is complete. And it's met all the criteria, servicing and so on. We're just waiting for registration.
Okay, but that's completely different than this?
Yeah.
That's completely different than this?
Yes, Your Worship, but the subdivision that was alluded to is to divide the parent property into 2. What you're seeing now, the Strata conversion proposal, is only for the front half of the property.
Okay,
So
I understand.
The land subdivision, if you wish, needs to take place first. Or
Okay.
this proposal would have to include the parent property, because you can't have a building strata with a remainder.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I got you. Councillor Casper?
Well, there's a way to resolve that. Council has the authority to actually grant the approval subject to those conditions being met, so that when the strata conversion is registered, there is actually a clearly defined proposed new legal description on that front part, and then there's a remainder of the parent lot, depending which way the subdivision is laid out. It's either A or B lot, or it's one and then the remainder of the parent lot. So granted, there's an opportunity to do both at the same time, and it gives the applicant comfort to proceed with everything as a package. So the subdivision that was applied for in January can get approved prior to this. Subject to that approval, then the strata conversion would take place. So we would never have to see it again. So that could take place at the next meeting.
Thank you.
And it allows for that in the provincial legislation. And I also think that our policy references that type of mechanism.
Okay, would staff concur with that?
Your Worship, Councillor Casper is correct. The subdivisions the developments can run in parallel.
Okay.
But the subdivision plan, the land subdivision plan, has to be deposited first, and the title has to be reflected on the portion of the property that they are doing a building strata on. So actually, registration would have to, the approval from council for the building strata would have to wait until such time that registration of the land lot takes place, so the new title can be declared for that piece on the front.
Okay. Do you have a way of taking that and just typing that into accompany this so that it's all together?
Yes, I can forward it at the next meeting. But I think what the applicant is looking for is some indication that council is prepared to approve in principle, subject to all the other good stuff that needs to take place first.
Right, and I'm sensing that there is support for that around the table. It's just making sure that we understand, what we're doing as we go through this process. Okay, Mr. Blackhall?
Yes, Your Worship, I'd just like to add, part of the materials we'll bring forward is the Strata Act page that talks about what council's requirements are to consider as part of the approval process of a building strata conversion, because there is a list, and as long as everything's met in your minds according to that list. And
Okay, that would be helpful, thank you. Okay, any further discussion on tonight's motion then? Anything? Okay, see none. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. Thank you very much, Mr. Haldane and Ms. Pedneault. We'll see you in 2 weeks, not as a delegation though.
You bet.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so that brings us to this evening's public question and comment period, and this time is set aside for any matter on tonight's agenda with exception of the public hearing for Wadams Way, because that has its own public hearing component to it. So it'll be for all other items on this evening's agenda as well as the supplementary information. So when you come forward, if you could please turn on the microphone and give us your name and your address and the agenda item on which you're about to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I am here to talk about the news that you are thinking in leaving just the Sooke News Mirror as a media in this town.
Okay, we just need your name and address.
Sorry, Margarita Dominguez, 2075 Other Point Road.
Okay, and sorry, which item regarding the
media issue? The Mary Brooke presented, or it was last council too.
Okay, speaking to Ms. Brooke's delegation then.
In general for the media issue.
Okay.
I think that cultural, linguistically, and intellectually is a mistake. Sorry for saying this. We are a country that we bring immigrants every day, and a lot of us have difficulty understanding certain types of writing, certain forms of semantics and syntax. For example, I have a lot of Latinos, for example, we have a lot of problems with syntax, and I imagine that in all the other languages is the same. And also intellectually, I think so that we all have our preferences and all degrees of education. Not everybody can be put in the same box. And I think so that denying other media for advertising funds is unfair to the country in generally, and you are part of the government. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dominguez.
Hi there. Fran Dash, 2387 French Road North. On to the advertising, the district advertising in the Sooke News Mirror. Even though I live up the road and there is delivery of the Mirror, I never get it. And when I do, sometimes the advertising, especially for meetings and the agendas and subdivisions and everything else, it's difficult to see, even with a magnifying glass. So if that stuff were to be online, it's just scroll to enlarge. So I hope you do consider your advertising to be spread, not equally, but everybody get a chance to see what's going on. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ms. Dash.
Good evening, Jeff Bateman, 7083 Briarwood. I didn't get an agenda at the front door. There didn't seem to be too many copies. I think you could, maybe some more copies could be left at the front door. I arrived a bit early and there were none left. So, first of all, I was a little disappointed that not a peep was asked of Mary Brooke after her presentation. You dedicated a half hour to Mr. Haldane and the Strata conversion. I think it's important that the points that Mary raised tonight be carefully examined, and that your advertising budget be distributed among our town's 3 media outlets. Let's see, I'm also in favor of Council pushing ahead with a tree protection bylaw as recommended in the Council reader file. It's good to see that there will be this 10-unit townhouse development at Ayre Road, on Ayre Roads, affordable housing and some density happening in our town center. And finally, despite the various storms and teacups of different sizes over the last year, congratulations to the district on the contents of your annual report. It was a very busy year and lots accomplished. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bateman. Microphone.
Britt Santowski, 2206 Church Road. I, too, am in support of Ms. Brooks' presentations this evening, and especially her request that you guys take to the UBCM their definition. It is, I've looked into this, and it is not in any of the two acts specifically. It's not in the Local Government Act, and there's another act, but it's in an interpretation, and it's only one line. That actually specifies paper. Paper is an old medium. The presentation that you guys received this evening was brilliant. And yeah, I wholeheartedly support her presentation. So.
Thank you, Mr. Santowski. Ms. Santowski. I think I said Mr. Sorry.
You guys are going to get tired of seeing me, I think. 3118C, Otter Point Road. You have in here that there's Melrick Place is coming up for a first and second reading, but there's also a little thing on the bottom here talks about 75% of all future lots would have no suites allowed and so on. It's only my opinion, but there's not really any value to that, because what's going to happen is people are going to put the suites in anyway. They're going to be deemed illegal, and then you're going to have to go through a process to stop these people from moving in there. Again, we have a housing crisis, and you can come up with all the rules in your world to try and stop people from moving in somewhere or having a place to live, and it doesn't tend to work. When I first got on council in 2008, we had rules in place where you had to have a 600 square meter lot to have a suite. But people started building houses in the small lot subdivisions we put together, 350 square meters and 500 square meters, and they all started putting suites in. So we started going around, and the fire department was probably one of the big proponents of trying to legalize suites in all zones, because they didn't know that there was people living in the basements, and if there was a fire and so on, you had no way of understanding it. People were building the suites anyway, and they were going in the houses anyway, and houses were being sold, and they were being advertised with suites. So the bylaw enforcement at the time would phone up realtors and stuff saying you can't legally advertise and whatnot. Through the years, we've built 17 duplexes that I know for a fact, and there's probably more by now, that all have suites in them. And to give you some clarity on that, in the BC Building Code, it states that you cannot have a suite in a duplex in the building code, not even in our own bylaws. But Sooke's allowed them. They're still active to this very day. And as a matter of fact, on 5 of them, we allowed a building permit with suites in those, and we contravened the BC Building Code. The point is they're all been built, sold, and now they're active. We've never shut them down. We should have done a rezone on all those properties and put them into a multifamily zone for them to be code compliant, and we've never done that. If we're going to start taking lots and we're going to say 75% aren't allowed to have suites in them, you're going to run into an issue where people are still going to do them anyway, so there's a better system for that. And in 2009, we came up with a rule where it said you had to do, if you were going to have suites in any of the small lot zones, you had to create a 14-meter wide road dedication. We're still doing 12-meter wide roads, and we still have problems parking cars on both sides of the road. So if you increase the road size to 14 or 15 meters wide and said you can have suites all legally there, well, then you create a whole bunch more parking, and you have two-way traffic that can go by. And that's where you're running into the issues now. The roads are just too narrow. And we did actually pass a regulation to have that in our building code, or our building bylaw, but it never got implemented. Somewhere along the way, it got passed by resolutions, and then nobody ever implemented it. So all of our subdivisions now are all 12 meters wide with no parking available. So, I mean, I think this is just something that'll just turn into a bigger problem down the road. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haldane. Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak on tonight's agenda? Okay, so we'll move on accordingly then, and that brings us then, we've moved 13.2 forward, please. So if I could have that report and over to Ms. Rice, our planner. Item 13.2, community consultation for the draft OCP land use designations. And we have a PowerPoint. Go ahead, Ms. Rice.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, everyone. We'll do a quick recap of where we have come to date and move on. So here we are. The official community plan is the district's most important planning tool. It helps influence the way our community grows and develops by guiding how land is used. Land use and development decisions influence all parts of our daily lives and how our community looks and feels, as well as where we live, work, and play. The OCP must satisfy requirements of provincial legislation and be consistent with the Capital Regional District's regional growth strategy. So we began this process about this time last year, and we've done a number of public engagement exercises to help us determine key directions, which we'll just go through in a minute very briefly. But you can see we are at the point right now where we're looking for some feedback on preliminary concepts before we head into the draft plan. So maybe we can go to the next. I feel very powerless without the clipper. It's the clicker. Anyhow, so the engagement process to date has given us, from the grassroots upward, some key goals for the community, which is the three main ones are to protect the environment, to celebrate our community, and build our economy. We have draft key directions, which are, all these are posted on the district website. I'm just going to go through this very quickly because we did do most of this already before, but some people were not here, so I thought I'd just let you know it's here. So where we are now is we need to add about another 12,000 people over the next 20 years. And so looking into the future, what will Sooke look like? There's a number of design directions for future planning, picking out a couple, minimizing introductions in the spread of invasive alien species, having less automobile dependency, finding better access to a diversity of local services, jobs, and schools, and having a wide range of housing choices. There's tons of information here that we've collected from the beginning of this engagement process, and this is just a very quick snapshot of it all. So now we need to talk about neighbourhoods and land use. And so based on feedback from council and the public engagement process from last summer to today, staff has prepared a neighbourhood and land use designation map and descriptions which aim to meet the three draft goals and the 12 key directions that I showed you earlier on in the slide. So some draft maps and descriptions aim to stimulate conversation and understanding about the future land use in Sooke, and their goal is to help with better decision making by informed established planning theory, and we talked about some of that last week, or 2 weeks ago, I guess. So our land use designations include general descriptions for discussion purposes surrounding land use and the place where things will be developed. So land use designations, the goal of them is to match the lands in a plan area to the goals, objectives, and policies set out in the OCP. We can go to the next one. So in draft form right now, you can see that there's some patterns of density in the middle here and aerial views of some of the imagery, followed by some sample images of what the designations will look like. And I won't get into it now, but I'll just say that the broad categories include public parks, plazas, and natural areas, pedestrian connectivity corridors, agricultural resource lands, rural lands, and rural neighborhoods, neighborhood infill areas, neighborhood commercial nodes, regeneration lands, and mixed-use employment lands. So this is the draft concept map. And finally, so this is the early information that has been pulled together from the beginning to now. And so at the last committee of the whole meeting, council asked that I propose a public engagement process for evaluating basically this slide and the two previous ones. So I've come up with this basically agenda, so 5 ways to tell us what you think about the draft official community plan land use designations. So you can join us starting basically this Thursday through the end of the month. And we'll have a booth down below in Town Hall in the planning, I should say, right by the front desk. And then people will be able to submit comments to a little email address that we've set up, ocp@sooke.ca. We'll have a booth set up at the Farmers Market on June 24th. Try and do the next 3 Thursday night markets so people can drop by there. And then also have a booth set up at the library starting on Thursday, running through the end of the month, open regular library hours. So that's it. And if anyone has any questions, so you'll be able to give your feedback and ideas on what's next.
Thank you, Ms. Rice. I really like that plan. Just in the theme of media, though, and raising awareness, we do need to push out that this is what we're doing. So in the case, I think, send out a media release to everyone with that piece. And then I do think that for this particular item, council should look at advertising in our 3 local sources so that those, I like just that, this is my perspective, it's just that diagram that you had on the previous slide that had the 5 ways there.
Okay.
Because it has the dates, it has locations, and where you can do it at what particular point. So
Your Worship, my plan too is to make almost like a large postcard of this as well for distribution, and then on the flip side of it, people can actually write their comments on that and send it in. So when we have the booth at the library or down below, for instance, there'll be a stack of those so they can write them by hand or they can submit them by email, and you can share them around and just get.
Okay. Other thoughts? I have Councillor Casper, I believe, then Berger. I'm not sure. Who was first? Go,
Yes, I just want to thank you very much for all your work on this. Is it possible, without divulging any confidential aspect to the legal opinion that the district got in regard to our current official community plan, to make some information available to the public as to what the legal requirements are, what our statutory obligations are, and some of the basic things that our lawyer recommended that we have in the plan and not have in the plan. And the reason I'm asking that is because I don't want the general public to assume things that may or not happen with the official community plan based on statutory requirements. Official community plan is a guiding document. It is not a document that's 100% cast in stone. The council is under no obligation to fulfill any plan or content within the community plan. We have had a great deal of discussion about the mechanics of the plan at a number of committee of the whole meetings. And it's too bad that the public at large wasn't able to attend all those meetings. But it was fairly revealing as to the fact that this council believes that it's more important to have a very clear, precise document as opposed to one that is this thick. And perhaps we can do more with a smaller document that's a little more precise. So I would hope that if there's a creative way of getting that information out to the public, it would assist in the process. I just want to thank you again.
Thank you. Councillor Berger, then Pearson.
Yes, thank you. I want to send a huge thank you. I love the new, how you've broken the map down with the proposed land use designation. I think it's awesome for residents, newcomers, and everybody to sort of get a grasp of what area they'd be moving into if someone was moving into Sooke, or what area we would have proposed development for within the district for people that are wanting to build or to renovate or what have you. I mean, I can appreciate that it's in draft form, but I really love the idea that you're going with, because it really gives people, for me, it gave me a really, I don't know how to say it appropriately, it gave me a far better grasp on what areas we perceive will do the next step, right? Like when you're looking to go forward, what area is going to grow? I mean, obviously our sewer specified area will, but it's interesting to see how much agricultural land is actually within that sewer specified area. It's interesting to see the connectivity that runs through there. So it really gives you a grasp of what our community looks like based on neighborhoods. So thank you for that mapping.
Councillor Pearson?
Yes, and I'll echo the statements of my previous councillors and the mayor. Thank you very much for your work. It's really coming along, and it's really feeling like that we're progressing in a way that I think is going to be a valuable tool for this council and future councils to go forward. And the public should have good confidence that they've had a significant amount of impact or input to this plan. I did have a comment over the weekend. I had a phone call from someone, and they're following it, and their interpretation was that you've got some numerical assignments, and they interpret that number one is protect the environment, which maybe that's what it is, but that's not the intent of the plan as I understood it from your presentation. It's just so just a bullet point for you perhaps to take note of it, because people think that they flow up to number one or flow out of number one, whichever way. So that was just one piece of input, but the rest of it's looking really good. I still have the questions around that blue zone down on the Whiff-and-Spit Peninsula, identified as rural land. So that's my input. So it still continues that. I think that's still a lot higher density than rural land. And even if you look inside that blue and you expand it, it looks quite high density there. I know that unfortunately there was some zoning changes there. That there's a lot of properties in that blue zone that don't currently meet their own zoning requirements. So that's something that as a council we need to look at. So my personal opinion was I'd like to see that more of pinkish rather than blue. Thank you.
Anything else from members of council? So there is a motion and that is a recommendation, and that is that council receive the June 12th OCP community consultation schedule for information and support staff with regard to receiving public input on the draft land use designations map, land use descriptions, and a long-range neighborhood-based approach to planning in Sooke. Okay, moved by Councillor Casper and seconded by Councillor Parkinson. Any discussion on the motion? We have a schedule of dates. Does council want to see this advertised anywhere, just so staff know that they need to do that? I guess at a minimum, if we could do a media release, though, and get it out and tweet it out as well, please. Okay, I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Okay, thank you very much for your work again, and we look forward to the future feedback that you'll receive. Okay, moving into our public hearing, please. We have item 10.1, which is 6671 Wadams Way, bylaw number 665, zoning amendment, bylaw 600-36. This is all tied into the public hearing package that we have on the blue pages. There's a question, are the blue pages out in the hallway? There's no materials. It appears that we have run out of paper. Okay. Do you mind just passing yours along, Councillor Parkinson? Okay, so I think we'll begin with a staff report. Ms. Lecision is our planner. Are you providing that? Thank you.
Yes. Good evening, Your Worship and members of Council. The following is a brief overview of a rezoning application at 6671 Wadams Way, commonly known as Lot A, which is owned by the District of Sooke. The entire parcel is 5.26 acres of land and is located at the north end of the town centre. The existing neighborhood includes a mix of residential, commercial, and institutional uses. Currently, the property is zoned R1 large lot residential, and it's proposed that the parcel be rezoned to P2 community facilities. The P2 zone will allow the location of a new community library and provide institutional uses for the entire site. The parcel is designated town centre in the OCP, which supports revitalization of the area, promotion of a mix of uses, and a strong civic presence in the core area of the community. Staff can support the application to rezone the property to P2 because it's consistent with district policies and bylaws and the strategic plan.
Any questions from members of council? Okay, so we'll move right into the public hearing, and I will read out this statement, please. This public hearing is being held pursuant to the Local Government Act. At this public hearing, any person who believes that their interest in property is affected by the proposed bylaw will be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard or to present written submissions respecting matters contained in the bylaw that are the subject of this hearing. Copies of written submissions received to date are available. It is important that all who speak at this hearing restrict their remarks to matters contained in the bylaw, and it is my responsibility of chairs this hearing to ensure that all remarks are so restricted. For those of you who wish to address council, please at the appropriate time commence your address by clearly stating your name and address. Then you may give us the benefit of your views concerning the proposed bylaw. Submissions must be received before or during the public hearing in order to be considered by council. Members of council may, if they so wish, ask questions of you following your presentation or submission. However, the main function of council members this evening is to listen to the views of the public. It is not the function of council at this public hearing to debate the merits of the proposed bylaw with individual citizens. Everyone who deems his or her interest in the property to be affected shall be given the opportunity to be heard at this hearing. No one will be or should feel discouraged or prevented from making his or her views known. Please note that this hearing forms part of tonight's regular meeting of council and as such is being video recorded. Videos and their contents, including any personal information disclosed during the public hearing, will be posted on the district's website. So I'd like to welcome any members of the public forward for any comments regarding the rezoning of 6671 Wadams Way. Welcome, sir. If you could please turn on the microphone. Just over. Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name is Vince Duabaitis. I live at 2127 Townsend Road, an adjacent property. I hand-delivered a letter to Mayor and Council Thursday last, but I don't see it anywhere in the package, so I guess I don't know how they're included in your materials. But I hand-delivered it to the front desk. Okay. I'll just run through it for you. What my intent was. My concern was that this parcel has no revenue generating potential the way it's zoned, and library fines are not going to cut it. We're creating a black hole here that will add to the municipal costs and that will return to us, the taxpayers. In light of the current tax increase being above inflation, above the rate of cost of living, how is it responsible to create a black hole that will continue to draw financial resources of the district? So I'm concerned that the vision here doesn't include recovery of some kind of costs. And secondly, this is an excellent opportunity for a public-private partnership in developing the future core. This is an important parcel that can shape the direction that we're going in. It's fortunate that Council moved the parcel forward to the point where it will be able to be used, but now we need to look ahead and see how it will be. So taking any kind of revenue and commercial designation out of this seems rather short-sighted. And that was essentially the gist of what I wanted to say. Was I would like to see some kind of revenue coming forward from this property. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Other members of the public have comment on the rezoning, please.
I'll be real short here, but 3118C Otter Point Road.
Sorry, your name, sir?
Herb Haldane. Yeah. Anyhow, I would like to see that this application process the district's going through, and I'm happy with how it's progressing and so on, but I'd like it to become the template for applications in the future for everybody. There's all kinds of issues on this property that exist on smaller properties and other properties in the region. This process is going through faster, quicker, better, more streamlined, and with less interference from governance and everything else, because it's for the right reasons, libraries, and maybe we'll get involved in some co-op housing, whatever. But the whole point being that applications that come forward from the private sector don't get the same consideration that this one does. So I talked to your CAO, Ms. Sullivan, there some time ago. She mentioned that she would be implementing this process as the new template going forward. But of course, she's not here at this time right now, and I'm just reiterating those facts in the conversation we'd had. And I'd like to see more of a streamlined process for everybody in the future that would reflect this one. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haldane. Other members of the public? If I may call for a second time, please, for any comments on the rezone of 6671 Wadams Way. And call for a third and final time, please. Okay, so seeing none, I will close the public hearing then for this evening, and thank you everyone for your comments. And so this, I will turn back to Council. Are there any further comments? Councillor Pearson, please.
Yes. I think it's important to know that we went to second and third reading with this going to CTC zoning a number of meetings ago. It was this council that decided to change this back to public zoning. I have no issues with going ahead for the library. There was a very small turnout of the public who wanted to hear what we were doing with it from a commercial town center. I think that it was nice to hear from somebody from the public today to see that there's potentially revenue sharing that could help us in the district, not only with taxes, but to be innovative in our downtown core. I think that the original proposal, and I'll stick by it, to put it into town center zoning to get the maximum use out of it. I think that people need to understand is that we have to be progressive and innovative. I spent some time at FCM last week, and they talked about innovation across the country and partnering with the public purse and the private sector to come up with solutions are the way that local governments are going to have to go across the country. So I'm not sure that we're giving the public the best bang for the buck by putting this to a public designation. I recognize it does protect it. I will be supporting the motion going forward, but I think it needs to be said that we need to look at big key pieces of property like this to develop it, and we need to form partnerships. We had a member of the public say that tonight, and I thank him for coming. I didn't know he was going to be here because I was going to say this on my own. But this is key to our downtown and shaping partnerships that we don't know about today. So we've limited some private enterprise, and questions will have to be asked. We may be, in fact, able to partner up with private people, but it means a long, drawn-out process again. If we put this to the highest potential use that was proposed, and all of us voted for that to go to second and third reading, and at the last minute, we changed it because of a small number of people, and not that they need to be heard. But anyways, I think it's important that we recognize where we went. I think we went a step backwards. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Pearson. Councillor Parkinson.
Through you, Your Worship, during our discussion of this property, it was also stated that the mayor would like to form a committee to have people come forward to say what they would like to see on this property also for other development and other projects that can go onto it. So the portion was for the library, but there is no decision on what's happening with the rest of the property. So we have to look together as a community to see what we want on this land. I think it's a great addition for Sooke, and I'm really happy that we have it and that the library is going there. If we didn't have it, we wouldn't have a library in Sooke because we didn't own the other property. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parkinson. Councillor Berger, please.
Yes, thank you. I am absolutely agree with being open-minded to the potential of that this property could have for our town center. It's right in the midst of our town center. And I think I would be open-minded to commercial uses, to co-op housing uses, to a wide variety of things. The reason why I support the P2 right now is because we don't have a plan. So the beauty with the district owning this piece of property is that we can rezone it. So this has only taken less than 2 months, as Mr. Haldane has laid out. This has been a fairly fast process with the district owning the property. And if someone were to come forward with an idea, something that we could maybe work towards, a land use agreement, funds, I absolutely would be open to hearing any of it. And again, because the district owns it, we can rezone it whenever we'd like to.
Any other comments from members of council? Okay, the recommendation is that council give third reading to zoning amendment bylaw 665 600-36. Moved by Councillor Parkinson and seconded by Councillor Ray. Any further comments on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Is carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Ms. Lecision. Okay, our next item, item 12.1, Sooke Sewer Specified Area Amendment Bylaws, number 668-2295, Phillips Road. There's a recommendation that council adopt the Sooke, the bylaw that I just read, Sooke Sewer Specified Area Amendment Bylaw 668-147-31. Moved adoption by Councillor Berger and seconded by Councillor Casper. Any discussion on adoption? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Okay. 12.2, Sooke Sewer Specified Area Proposed Boundary Adjustment. And do we have a staff report for this?
Yes, Your Worship.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Howard.
On December 14, 2015, the District of Sooke Council adopted Bylaw 624, Sooke Sewer Specified Area Amendment, Bylaw 147-25, which removed 7,000 Melrick Place from the core Sooke Sewer Specified Area. The removal of this property from the sewer specified area was at the request of the property owner. Since that time, road dedication and subsequent subdivision have allowed for the southern portion of the property to be sold to new owners who have applied for re-inclusion, if you will, back into the SSA. We have had, the district has received an application to amend the zoning on this property, which is coming up next in the, on the agenda. Both applications were received prior to Council's most recent direction, limiting any further SSA inclusions until the fee requirements were updated. The application for inclusion has been reviewed by Stantec Consulting, who are our engineers for the sewer system, as you know, and it maintains the district and maintains the sewer model for ourselves. The Stantec has reported there is sufficient capacity in the existing infrastructure to accommodate the estimated 20 single-family SFE equivalents and the future development of the proposed lot. Beyond that, I will like to field any questions of Mayor and Council, if you wish.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Howitt. Questions, Councillor Pearson, please.
Well, I was going to move the recommended action.
Okay, so moving the recommendation, and that is stated to receive the petition for local area service for the property located at 7004 Melrick Place. Are we breaking this out, Ms. Rears? So maybe just moving that first one, and then we give the readings separately?
No, you can do them together if you'd like.
Okay, but do we have to call for like first and second and vote on
Oh, no, you can do all three together in one.
So we can do all of this in one big block. Okay, so you're moving the whole thing, Councillor Pearson?
Yes.
Okay, just clarifying. And seconded by Councillor Berger, is that correct?
Oh, sure.
Okay, and then a question, Councillor Berger?
Thank you. Sorry. I just have a question through you, Your Worship, to staff. Sorry, I'll apologize for my voice again. In the report, it says that the southern portion of the property, like it speaks to the southern portion. So I'm just curious as to, was the entire property sold, and are we speaking about the entire property, or is the rezone coming for the southern portion?
The rezoning is coming for the southern portion.
Other questions? So we have the motion to receive, and then we have all the readings together in a block. Everyone's clear on that? So am I. No questions then? I'll call the question on all of that. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Okay, thank you very much. 12.3, zoning amendment bylaw 675, 7004 Melrick Place. And over to, back to staff. Mr. Howitt, please.
Excuse me, Worship, I was looking for the clicker, but apparently there isn't one, so.
Okay.
The application before you tonight is to rezone 7004 Melrick Place from RU2 to RU4, being RU4 small lot residential to R3. The applicant would like to subdivide to create 18 bare land strata lots and 2 fee simple lots. The applicant has applied to include the property into the sewer specified area, as we well know, so I won't continue on that portion there. So if we can go to the next slide. Maybe the next slide. Okay, I'll just continue on my presentation. There is a geotechnical covenant registered to the subject property that requires a site-specific geotechnical covenant prior to further residential development occurring. The applicant has agreed to engage a geotechnical engineer who will provide this report prior to the public hearing. The proposed rezoning is providing infill and creating contiguous development in the area that is to be densified. The applicant has proposed to meet the affordable housing contribution required within Section 473 of the OCP by providing secondary suites for rental market. In reviewing the concept plans for subdivision, the narrow shape of the lot and the proposed road width, staff has concerns about parking becoming an issue if secondary suites are permitted on all future lots. To address the parking concerns, planning has suggested that a common property lot be provided on the site map, on the site may help alleviate parking concerns. This was done at a previous strata, if everybody remembers, on 2260 Maple Avenue. It's called Trickle Creek, and the common parking area seems to be working quite well in that development. Excuse me. The applicant has responded to staff's parking concerns by proposing to prohibit secondary suites on 75% of the lots by way of a covenant. Although this would be a solution to address the parking congestion, staff is concerned that by doing this, the affordable housing component is not as strong. One of the objectives of the OCP is to provide affordable and attainable housing opportunities. Providing secondary suites is seen as a way to fulfill this goal. Further to this objective, the OCP states that the minimum lot size for homes with secondary suites need to be able to accommodate parking and the provision of private or shared open space for suite tenants. If council wishes not to restrict the secondary suites on this property, there should be consideration given to parking and open space for tenants, and that's something that we can work with the applicant on that to provide. If a covenant is desired to restrict secondary suites on 75% of the future single-family lots on the property, it will be the responsibility of the applicant's legal solicitor to prepare a covenant, and the covenant will need to be registered prior to the adoption of the rezoning. From that, that's my presentation. I'd be prepared to answer any questions that council may have.
Okay, thank you. Questions from council. Councillor Pearson, please.
Well, I think, first of all, I mean, obviously it's consistent with the area, and I think it's a good application. I don't like restricting by covenant what they meet in requirements. If the lot size is the lot size, then and legal suites are allowed in that particular zoning, then I don't think I don't like getting into covenants restricting certain things because people don't understand those covenants, where they start, and then 10 years down the road we may end up with something that's less desirable. So I would like to see the development going ahead. I support the development. It's in the right area. We've got the sewer capacity, and it's again one of the things that is facing us, and you're going to hear it over and over again as we go forward, is affordable housing. So again, I don't know what other solutions are out there. I recognize that parking is an issue, so I would leave it to the developers themselves to come up with plans on those lots to get as much off-street parking as possible built, because I think that also becomes desirable as a selling point as well. But I'm going to support the development, but I don't want to support covenants being in there restricting 75% of the lots. I think that's kind of counterintuitive to what we are trying to achieve. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Parkinson and Berger, please.
Through your worship, my main concern would be with the parking, On the weekend, we've had a number of people complaining about parking on Townsend Road and on Maple, where they can't get down the roadway to go to their own housing because of people parking on both sides of the road, so there's not enough room. So it's great if everybody has secondary suites in it, but it also has to accommodate the parking. I think that is a real necessity, because that's what we hear mostly, is even in the small developments, is the roadways aren't wide enough, there's not enough room for parking, and it's causing a lot of problems.
Councillor Berger?
Yes, thank you. I agree with Councillor Pearson. When I first looked at this, I thought, okay, we're going to see 20 homes with illegal suites in them. As a previous speaker said, unfortunately, people are going to build them anyways. They'll get occupancy and then they'll put them in. And then we've got people living in illegal suites that maybe aren't fire rated appropriately. Maybe they're not safety and habitable for the people that need the suites. I mean, we all watch the news every single day. Housing is a serious problem. So for me, rather than go the covenant way, I would love to see what kind of creative sources maybe our staff and the developer can work with as far as parking. Parking is an issue, and we do see that in lots of our subdivisions, but I think housing is a bigger issue. And I think we need to have, affordable suites or, rental stock within Sooke. So I support the development, and as Councillor Pearson said, I don't support the covenant, and I don't have the perfect solution, but I'm hoping maybe the developer and staff can come up with something, whether they can widen the road or, maybe they can find some solution for parking. Thank you.
Thank you. For myself, I don't support the covenant either, but I do like the idea of the common property lot for the visitor parking or overflow, because everyone seems to keep coming with a car until there's a real shift in mode or transit in this area improves. So, I think that not everyone is going to want to have a suite in their home, and that there should be the flexibility within the development to either have the suite or to not have the suite. But there is a need. We just heard we need to fit 12,000 more people somewhere in the community. But for the next decade, parking will likely still be a challenge. So if there's some way that the developer can work with staff to create some sort of an overflow lot like what was referenced, I think that might alleviate some of it if the road can't be widened to allow for more street parking. Councillor Casper, then Ray, please.
Is the applicant present?
Yes, I'm seeing his hand up.
So I have questions for the applicant.
Okay.
Is it possible?
Not procedurally, that would be up to council to invite you forward. So thank you for your eagerness.
I would like
so
to invite
I would like a resolution from council.
I would move that the applicant be invited to come forward to answer questions.
Okay, and that's seconded by Councillor Pearson. All those in favor?
What if we say no? You have to go back to your seat.
Opposed? Can we just wait till you're recognized? There's sort of a process. Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Casper.
So my question for you to the applicant is in regard to the conditions and the covenant and what you've heard from some council members. Are you prepared to, create some form of a parking area which would allow the flexibility of having suites? Because it is an issue.
Can you please, we need you to introduce yourself and turn on the microphone. Thank you. Yes, but turn on the microphone. Thank you.
Hi, Michael Volk, 4923 Townsend Drive in Saanich. I am the applicant. Thank you. Sorry I was late for the meeting. I didn't get to speak earlier at the public part.
So there was a question you're hearing some comments from council. I think you're hearing support for your application, support not to have a covenant on the property because we do want to have some flexibility there, and the challenges on parking have arisen. So there was a comment or a question from Councillor Casper. What are your thoughts in terms of addressing parking?
Yeah, so as I said, I was hoping to be able to say something because I heard the debating and I agree with everything that all of you have said. When I'm looking at this development, I'm looking at the overall viewpoint to states, and I know that you're not, and it's not really probably the proper way to approach this right now, but it's just the way I'm looking at it, so I'm going to blurt it out. it's 100 and, you haven't seen the new plan for the subdivision. I last night was working on it, and it's about 160 lots total, and which is significantly down from the 400 lots or 400 units that site originally had zoning for. So we're excited to bring this to council in short order, and you'll see the broad picture of the Viewpoint Estates development. But this particular piece of land, so the reason why it's the southern part that came up earlier, is because we purchased it from the Clarks in two portions. And so we've closed on this piece now. We have the access to the Brailsford services, and we'll close on the northern piece in the future. So anyway, on this piece, the road is narrow, and so we went with Strata. And when I looked at it for the suites for the R3 zone, it was funny because I was talking with Tara, and she says, "Oh no, actually, suites are allowed in those little tiny lots." I didn't actually completely realize that. But my thought process is that it's a great location for retirement homes, and I know that you're right. People always try to figure out how to wedge a suite in there. We even were talking about maybe building it out ourselves. So that's why I went that route with covenants, because out of all of the lot, every lot at Viewpoint Estates on the master plan that I have is 550 meters, specifically so every house there can have suites. So if you add the whole thing together, out of 160 lots, you're going to have 20 of them, or 15 of them without suites potentially. That's actually, in the broad scheme of things, it makes sense. And then also that part of the project there would be more of a retirement oriented with affordable housing, because the little tiny lots with little houses would be quite affordable. So that's how I looked at it. But I agree. I mean, I've been here so many times on that other site about those crazy covenants. They are certainly a pain. So, there might be a way to beat the parking.
So is your preference then to have the covenant?
Well, I was thinking to myself while you guys were talking about the fact that, these little lots, you don't always necessarily have to park your car in front of the garage. You can also maybe make 2 or 3 spots on the property, and it isn't exactly attractive, but it can work. And if we're talking about affordability, it's not going to be the street of dreams, let's face it. But they could be good, affordable little homes.
Okay, Councillor Berger. Sorry, I missed Councillor Ray. Sorry for the first time.
I just have a quick question of the applicant, if that's okay. So if you're looking at doing possible retirement homes, are they all ranchers? I mean, because I'm envisioning
Well, that's what I was thinking, yes. I mean, I'm rezoning property, though. It's not like I can tell you for sure that that's the plan. But that is what I was looking at, because the Viewpoint Estates property that we're also developing at the same time, and this is part of it, and everybody knows that's why we bought the property. It's all, with the topography, going to be multi-level homes. So there isn't many opportunities for ranchers there.
Okay. My concern was, as I stated earlier, that the houses will be sold and then someone will just put a suite in, and will put a suite in that doesn't meet code requirements.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if they're ranchers, that makes me more comfortable that there's nowhere to put a suite.
Yeah, but that's only if we build it out. I honestly can't promise you that, right? It's if we build it out. Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Ray. Sorry, Councillor Ray, I missed you.
Yeah. No worries, and thank you, Your Worship. I guess my comment was, as I'm just reflecting back to another rezone that were issues at the corner of Dover and Lanark off of Sooke Road, and at that time parking was such an issue, even though it was affordable housing, that the developer went away from the table because the support wasn't there. So I agree with both Councillors Pearson and Councillor Parkinson. If there's a way to mesh the two, it would be great to make sure that the parking is there and the affordable housing.
I think we can do it.
Okay, any other questions for the applicants? Okay, thank you, Mr. Volk.
Thank you.
Thank you for attending. So at this point then, there is a recommendation. We'll deal with that then. That council give first and second reading to zoning amendment bylaw 675 600-39 for the purpose of amending the zoning on the property located at 7004 Melrick from rural RU2 and rural residential RU4 to small lot residential R3, and that a public hearing be scheduled for zoning amendment bylaw 675 in accordance with section 466 of the Local Government Act.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Councillor Casper and seconded by Councillor Parkinson. So perhaps in between, if the applicant could please meet with staff, and then perhaps the next presentation then is just for some more clarity on how we're going to address the parking. That is something that we continually hear and receive complaints and calls about, so it would be good to address it in some way if we can.
Your Worship, if I may, what I can do is we'll work with the proponent and come up with a scheme, if you will, for the parking, and
Sure.
we'll come forward and have a bit of a report before the public hearing at the next meeting.
That sounds great. Thank you very much. Okay, I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Okay, 12.4, 6717 and 6723 Ayre Road rezoning application. Go ahead, Ms. Lecision, thank you.
So these properties, this application is for, 6717 and 6723 Ayre Road. The two parcels combined are approximately half an acre in size, in amongst a mix of residential, commercial, and institutional uses. Currently, the properties are zoned R1 large lot residential, and it's proposed that the lots be rezoned to RM3, which is a high-density multifamily. The site is located in the town center, and the current owner intends to construct townhouses on the site. There's currently one house remaining on the property that the owner intends to remove, and the other house has been demoed in response to the remedial action initiated by the district. The properties are designated town center within the OCP, where there's support for high-density residential development, a wide range of housing options, affordable and easily accessible units, and a centralized population that supports existing infrastructure, a range of businesses and cultural activities for the community. In order to meet the OCP requirements around affordable housing, the owner has offered a cash in lieu contribution of $5,000 to the Affordable Housing Reserve Fund as per the bylaw. This would be secured by a Section 219 covenant. Overall, the application meets the goals and objectives of the official community plan, and therefore staff support the rezoning request.
Okay, questions or comments? Councillor Pearson.
Yeah, excellent project in an excellent area of Sooke that I think is going to benefit us. It's going to be a move towards cleaning up that area. So I'll move the recommended action and move that we schedule a public hearing.
Second. Okay, that's been moved as posted by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Ray. On the motion, please, Councillor Casper.
Is it possible to ask a question to the applicant?
If you want to, is the applicant here this evening? Okay. We have to pass. I have a motion. Okay. Yeah, we kind of are putting motions on motions here, which is procedurally way out of order. So in this case, just, sir, if you could please introduce yourself and thank you.
John Selesky.
We got to turn the mic on.
It's on.
It's on.
Oh, one is okay.
Okay. Thank you. Your question, Councillor Casper?
So my question relates to this affordable housing component. I understand that there's a requirement for $5,000. Was there any other option that that you were advised of pursuing in relation to providing affordable housing as per our affordable housing policy? Was that ever discussed?
I don't think so, no.
Okay. So were you ever advised that this is a voluntary process?
I was advised at a certain point that it was voluntary, yes.
Okay. So I personally, I don't support receiving $5,000 because I think the applicant or any other person should have the opportunity to make the choice of how they would like to pursue affordable housing within their project. There are provisions within the policy that allows an applicant to bring forward a unit that meets the requirements as outlined in the policy, that the sale value of a unit, as long as it's that the purchase of that at the current mortgage rates do not exceed 1/3 of a family's income. And I would hope that would mean more to the purchasing public than the district to gather $5,000, which in many respects, I think there's been one unit that I know of built with any money that we've ever collected. And to me, I don't feel that is a valuable mechanism to provide affordable housing. I would look for leadership from the applicant or the developer to actually agree to providing an affordable housing unit that meets our affordable housing policy. So I'm willing to support this to proceed, but I'm not prepared to support us collecting $5,000 to go into a pot, because to me, I don't think it brings any value. We have no plan on how to spend that money, and I don't think that that's the right way to go. But that's just my opinion. So thank you very much for your answer. Thank you.
That's it?
Okay, unless there's something you would like to add?
No, that's fine.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you very much. Thank you for sitting through this evening. Okay, other comments from members of council? Councillor Parkinson? I just shut it off.
Through you, Your Worship, my main concern, once again, because it's in such a prime spot downtown, and we have such issues with parking downtown, that we make sure that there is sufficient parking there. Thanks.
Mr. Howard, thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would just like to point out that planning staff did advise the proponent with regards to the option established and the opportunities, therefore, with the affordable housing.
Okay, thank you very much. And then there's, go ahead, Mr. Blackhall.
Yeah, Your Worship, I'd just like to add there's approximately 52,000-ish of these monies that have been collected and that are included in the Community Amenities Reserve.
Thank you. And then parking would be addressed by the zoning, right, and whatever that ratio is. Yeah, okay, perfect. Okay, so looking for council, there is a recommendation to pass first and second reading to the zoning amendment bylaw and to rezone 6717 and 6723 Ayre Road from large lot residential to high density multifamily RM3, and that council directs staff to schedule the public hearing. Moved by Councillor Parkinson.
Your Worship, sorry, it's already been moved and seconded.
Oh, it has. Okay, that's right, because we're piling on motions. Okay, sorry for reading that all again. Anything further on the motion then? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. We look forward to seeing how your project goes, and thank you very much for taking on that site. No, it's a major improvement to that area. Thank you. Okay, 12.5 sewer connection charges, bylaws 673 and 674. Staff, thank you for bringing this back in such a timely manner. This, I believe, is what council was looking for, so that's great. Anything further to add from staff other than the written report? Go ahead, Mr.
Thanks, Your Worship. Don't have anything else to add. It's all in the report. We're basically just bringing this forward so the fee can be adjusted from its current amount of $2,800-ish, I believe, to what it would have otherwise been if it had been increasing along with the amount of sewer parcel taxes, which would bring it to a total current amount of $6,032.50 per unit, and that it then be increased annually by $552, or the amount of the parcel tax approved by council for the year in case that changes.
Okay, and just a question that I have in her comment regarding the funds transfer. So would that otherwise not have transferred over?
Yeah, sorry, yes, Your Worship. What I believe, the 2,800 was for expansion of the sewer, not for modifications to the existing system, but expansion. Okay. And so we've had to bring forward a new bylaw, a new reserve bylaw for that purpose, because there isn't one currently. It's just the sewer reserve fund, which council was clear when that was created last year, because we never had a technical bylaw for this. Last year they made sure that was only for the existing system, not for expansion. Okay. So now we need one for the expansion where these monies should actually be recorded in. Right now they have been recorded in that other reserve. When it was just made into an actual bylaw, we transferred money into it at that time, and there was $25,200 of previous receipts that were sitting in there, and they should actually be into that new bylaw.
Okay, I understand. Thank you. Councillor Pearson, then Casper.
Yes, through your worship to staff. I want to thank staff. I think when I made this original motion somewhere back, you've captured exactly what I was thinking. So I want to say how much I appreciate that. The only part that I wanted to ask a question through the mayor is if we're going to increase by one lot, expand the sewer area by one lot because it's adjacent to our sewer specified area, what would be the charge? Just so is that captured in this bylaw for expansion? Just the way I read that.
Your worship, through to Councillor Pearson, the charge would not be $2,800. It will now be $6,032
for each lot created in
each new lot created in the SSA.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Casper.
Yeah, actually, it's a great report, and I think it's, the notation on page 165 at the bottom, that Bylaw 374 amended Bylaw 281, August 2008, to include the expansion wording in regard, and it's too bad that, that wasn't followed explicitly, because then the money would have gone straight towards that, correct?
Yep, through your worship to Councillor Casper, that's correct. And I'd like to thank our Deputy Corporate Officer for actually doing a bit of research and finding this extra bit of information for the report.
If I may, Councillor Parkinson and myself were on council when these changes were made, and we were concerned at that time about the prospect of new properties coming on stream and how that money should in fact be used. And I don't know if she can recall it, but it just seemed to get lost in the wash. So anyway, thank you.
Councillor Pearson.
So I'll move the recommended action and give first, second, third reading.
I think in this case we break them out, Ms. Bruce. So it'll be the first, second, and third reading to Bylaw 673. So those can be done as a block.
Okay, so I'll move that.
So moved by Councillor Pearson and seconded by Councillor Parkinson. So that's item 1. Any discussion on item 1? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. And then we have first, second, and third reading to Sewer Expansion Reserve Fund Bylaw 674. Moved by Councillor Parkinson and seconded by Councillor Casper. Any discussion on item 2? Seeing none, all those in favor, opposed, carried unanimously. And lastly, that council authorized the transfer of $25,200 from the Sewer Reserve Fund to the Sewer Expansion Reserve Fund. Moved by Councillor Pearson and seconded by Councillor Parkinson. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Okay, that's great. Thank you. That brings us to 13.1. Development Permit Amendment 6995 Nordin Road Phase 6. And anything further to add for the staff report?
Your Worship, there was no presentation.
Okay.
Excuse me, this is about the 4th or 5th time, I believe, that we've brought the amendment forward. There's really insignificant changes. There's some size change on the units. There's no more units, obviously, because we can't deal with density in a development permit. But there's some landscaping changes, and in my vernacular, the landscape changes make it prettier out there. So
make it prettier?
Make it prettier.
Oh, okay, that's nice. Thank you. So there is a recommended action that council authorize issuance of development permit amendment PLN 01312 for the purpose of amending development permit for 6995 Nordin Road Phase 6 with an updated elevation drawing, site plan, and landscaping. Moved by Councillor Pearson and seconded by Councillor Berger. Any comments or questions on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, we've dealt with 13.2, so 13.3, Broomhill Park equipment. And there is the report, and the photo in here is the equipment that is failing, that needs to be replaced. I guess it's about 21 years old, 96, I think? Or no, it was longer, 1980s. So I guess it's an antique.
Your Worship, I believe it was last year that we had MIA come out and assess the equipment in the park, and we do have some failing issues out there. And what we were looking for is council's direction to allow us to go out and have an RFP, or an RFQ, I should say, for equipment replacement in Broomhill Park.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Casper and seconded by Councillor Parkinson. On the motion, I have Councillor Berger, Ray Pearson, Parkinson, and Casper. Good.
I just have just a quick question. Through you to staff, in the report it talks about failing rails, and then I'm looking at the picture and I don't I just wanted to understand what had gone wrong. If you could clarify that for me, that'd be great. Thank you.
I believe what I was told is it's not the railings themselves, it's the connections for the railings. They're all rusting away.
Sorry, so my second part to that is that it looks like from the homework that you guys have done, it's really quite expensive to replace them through a company that no longer exists, and they don't make it because it's so old. I don't know if we add it to this motion afterwards, and I'll let everybody else talk, but we've got quite a few really great fabricators in the district, and I wondered if we'd given any thought to maybe having one of our local fabricators make something, and what the cost of that would be.
So you're saying not to have them refabricate this, but when we go to RFP to come back with something to create something new?
Well, just looking at the picture, and I wanted to understand what the rails were. And so if it's the connection between the posts, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I could be way off on a tangent here and I could be totally wrong. But from what I understood from the report was that there was parts of the equipment that needed to be replaced, and it looked like it talked about rails. So I thought it was the crossbars that were on sort of the monkey bar thing, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And so instantly, right to my head, instead of spending $50,000 to $80,000 to replacing it a whole new structure, could we use one of our local fabrication shops, and could they build those connectors, seeing as how the company doesn't exist anymore to send replacement parts?
Okay.
Your Worship, I think it's more than just the connectors, and I think it's more of the equipment is failing generally. And as far as having a fabricator, I mean, we can, when we put out the request for proposal, I guess we could include the local papers and everything else with regards to advertising it. But I would be concerned that that we're not meeting CSA or whatever MIA would require in the way of standards. But it's something we can look at before we put it out.
Okay, Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Your Worship, and just through to staff. When I was at FCM, they had at the trade show, they actually had a whole display on children's place stuff, and I happened to grab a couple of books. So, in talking with them, so if you're more than welcome to have them, so I'll just share those with them, and then they can take a look at what the pricing is too.
Great, thank you, Councillor Ray. Councillor Pearson.
Yeah. I guess I was two things. I brought the squirty thing back from the FCM too, like the water park, right? That wasn't
the squirty or the squirrely?
Squirty, you know.
The water thing.
The water thing. Yeah,
okay.
It looked like it would be a kind of a cool one. So, in you're suggesting an RFP for removal, and I guess my question is, would this fall into work that our outside staff could do? Do we need to go up for a proposal when we could potentially get this done in-house. I mean, obviously, the construction of the new one would go for the RFP. Was that what you've got? Because you've got it worded in here that an RFP going out for removal. So wouldn't this be something that our current outside staff could do in their purview?
Well, I think Your Worship, through to Councillor Pearson, I think the intent was to have, excuse me, an RFP that would look at both removal and replacement. But we can certainly look at our capabilities of removing it.
No, it is something, though, like given that it's summer and the weather hopefully will brighten up, we want kids out sooner. So I'd rather, like, let's go with the quickest option to get this going. Councillor Parkinson, please, and Councillor Casper.
Through you, Your Worship. This was, the park was brought up at the Parks and Trails Committee as one of the items that they would like to see replaced. So it's been talked about for quite some time. So I do believe that we should be working on getting this completed.
Great, thank you. Councillor Casper.
Yeah, my question through you to the Director of Finance is which line item in our budget will this be funded out of?
Through Your Worship, Councillor Casper, I believe it's in the Public Spaces Enhancement line. I believe there's enough room in there, from what I'm hearing from staff, that's where the cost would be accommodated.
So is that the one that's roughly $100,000?
I believe, through Your Worship, I believe it was $200,000 this year.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, when we were discussing that $200,000 figure, there was some question around what is that for? And I think it's called community. Is it something enhancements?
Yeah, through Your Worship, it's community space and public enhancement, or community something like that.
Right.
And it's in the capital budget. So.
Right. Yeah. So is there any other pot where this money could come out of?
It's, again, through Your Worship, it's capital in nature, so it does have to come from capital funding. We could certainly look at other capital projects, see if some are maybe not likely to be expended this year, and do a transfer from one project to another. But I believe there already is enough budget room in that budget.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, no, it's great. So we do have a motion that's been moved and seconded, so we'll be preparing the look internally to see if staff internally can remove this, but otherwise to get it removed and replaced. Yeah, it's already been moved and seconded. I'm just thinking aloud. Will we receive something back? Just here are some items that, like potential structures that would come replaced, or would we just be notified that a new one's been installed? Like, will you be coming back to council once the RFP, once it's closed? Okay, so then it would just be nice to see what sort of options that you've come back with to consider what they look like. And
yes, Your Worship, because of the cost is likely to exceed $25,000 anyway, so we'll be bringing back a report to council.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much then. Any further questions? See none, I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? Is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, so item 13.4, Council Liaison Update and for regional and community organizations. So this report was brought forward earlier in the year where we looked at the annual appointments that come up. There's quite a lengthy listing of ones that we have, and we did pass resolutions on a few of these, and then also got updates in terms of what is active and what isn't active. There's one on here I'd just like to point out. The Mayor's Public Advisory on Economic Development is inactive. That's I haven't had that committee rolling at all in this term as of yet, so it can remain on there, but I would just maybe add a note to say inactive for now. And there's still some outstanding requests for 4, and from that meeting we just asked staff to get back to us as to when these groups meet, so that, because often that's a challenge for members of council, is just where and what time they do actually meet. So we're seeing the first one meets on the 3rd Thursday in the evening at 7 at Colwood City Hall. Sooke Region Literacy Project every 2 months at 1 in EMCS. Family Court and Youth Justice Committee, third Wednesday of the month at 11:30 in Victoria. The wildlife conflict resolution is as required, and I believe that's in Metchosin. So is anyone interested in attending or even available to attend? That's really the challenge, is the timing of day and the like, I think is a bit challenging. The other option is that we can request that the minutes for these meetings or any sort of action just come to council. We can also look at having a member of the public attend on our behalf and report back to us. What would council prefer? Or council looking to sit on some? Councillor Casper.
Well, I think, that the first thing we should do is at least get copies of minutes. That would help. And then it gives us an idea as to any potential workload. And I'd also like to find out, are any of these a statutory requirement?
I don't believe any of them are.
Okay.
I think the only one that sort of came out through the CRD, and it's just through my experience, is the Victoria Family Court and Youth Justice Committee.
Right.
I think we pay $500 a year or something into it. We contribute a small amount of funds, and there's various pieces there. I mean, I am in Victoria at that time. The challenge, though, is whether or not the meeting that I'm on is adjourned in order for me to attend this. So I did say that I could drop in on occasion, but I don't want to make that commitment ongoing. Ms. Rears, please.
Just to clarify, Your Worship, I believe that the Wildlife Conflict Reduction Working Group meets in Sooke here at Municipal Hall.
Oh, they meet here? Okay. They did meet in Metchosin before.
So it might be an alternating process, but they did tell us that the next meeting on June 22nd is here at Municipal Hall.
Okay. So I think Councillor Berger?
I just was going to say, providing on what day it is, I could probably do the Sooke Region Literacy Project. So I can get in contact with that group. You maybe email Patty or Jen and just maybe reach out to them.
Okay.
I'm fortunate enough that I can work from home, so I can make a 1 o'clock meeting.
Okay.
And days are easier for me.
Yes. Okay. So I'll leave it with you. Maybe once you get some information, if you want the appointment, just notify us and then we can formalize it. But maybe in the meantime, then if we can just get some minutes and get sort of, I know this is more work for staff, but just if they could forward a couple of previous sets of minutes and then we can just see. But there's no statutory requirement. Councillor Parkinson.
Through Your Worship, if there are some committees that we'd like to sit on, should we just email them to you?
We can pass that resolution now if that's.
Gotta think about it.
Do you have some that you would like to be a part of?
Well, I'm thinking of it, so I'm just going to check out dates that they have down here.
Okay, if you want to advise me, then we can bring it at a upcoming meeting if you like. If you're ready, we could do it now.
I'm not ready yet.
Okay, that's totally fine. Yeah, Councillor Casper?
I just I think it's important to put a lot of these things in perspective. After being asked, and I agreed to sit on the Sooke Region Communities Health Network Age-Friendly Committee. So the chairperson contacted me. Mm-hmm. We had a fairly extensive discussion. It was his expectation that there may be times when I cannot attend, and that was not a problem. I get copies of their agendas and their minutes. And so what I've taken on doing is actually contacting the chair to ask what happened, what was the tenor, and is there anything that I should bring forward to council? So, I've established a relationship, and it's about time, right? And so there are times when they meet, it does conflict with a meeting, but I don't think it's going to happen this Wednesday. But I'm just throwing this out as advisement because a lot of these groups, they don't necessarily expect you to be at every meeting. They are very
No.
understanding.
No, they're all very good that way, but
Yeah.
council did formally endorse your liaison appointment?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, so I think that's an important
Mhm.
piece to do. Councillor Parkinson?
Through your worship, we have the one that's the CRD MOU working group. I
Yeah.
don't think that's such a thing.
I don't think it's even, I saw...
I've never been to a meeting for it.
Okay. That's where it was timely this year to actually just sort of clean this up.
Right.
And it was, yeah, so I don't believe it is either. I think it was a very, I don't know. There was different working groups that were established for very brief periods of time. It's the same as that ORV local group, community working group that came out of the UBCM, and it was specific to a change, I think, that was occurring in legislation, and that group doesn't meet anymore either. Like, that's where often working groups are very for short-term specific items. Okay.
One other thing.
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry. One of the committees I'd be interested in sitting in is the wildlife conflict resolution.
Yes.
And that one's here in Sooke, so I'm told. So I would put my name forward for that one.
Okay, so why don't we do that then for Councillor Parkinson? Okay.
You need a motion?
Yeah, I'm just I think some of the others. That Thursday evening in Colwood is a timing. That's a very difficult time to meet. Although they are important issues, it's just logistically getting back and forth. And I don't mind going to the Victoria Family Court and Youth Justice Committee. Just bearing in mind, I don't think I can meet. I can make the June meeting, and then I'm right there, just provided that Parks meeting adjourned. So I don't mind putting my name there, and then at least this will give staff something to take to the groups and say, look, can we just get some information here? Okay, is Councillor Berger, are you comfortable just having your name put on there as a liaison? Okay, and Councillor Parkinson, so we'll just have to leave the first one blanks for now. So we'll just move these in a block then, please.
So move.
Moved by Councillor Casper and seconded by Councillor Pearson. All those in favor? Opposed? This motion is carried. Thank you very much, and thank you, staff, for all of your follow-up work with this. Okay, 13.5, our travel-related expenses policy. We discussed this at the last committee of the whole, and also have both the black line version and the finalized policy, the existing one here. Any questions on the policy? Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Your Worship. On page 203 of the package, the very last paragraph, number 1, within the boundaries of the District of Sooke, it just refers to council members. I'm just wondering if that was intended that the district staff may not, for some reason, not have anything that we would be able to claim for us. It's not including meals and mileage, but I just think the district staff are missing from that.
Okay, I'm sorry, Councillor Ray. Can you let me know, because I'm looking at it online. I don't know what page number.
Mine doesn't come up with any pages online.
Here.
What is it? Where do you see the page number?
It's page 7, I believe.
Right there.
7
Right
of
there.
15.
See that link, right? Right there, 2 of 3. See it?
No.
Maya, try 7 of 19.
7 of 19. 7 of 19.
Oh, you're in a different way, sorry. I'm not.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. 7 of 19, and then the bottom. Okay, so here, and then the item.
Yeah, I'm just wondering that I think it's missing district employees. They refer to district employees all the way through this, council and district employees, but
Okay.
number 1, it's not there. And
It's here.
pardon?
Which Which one are you looking at?
Number 1.
It says,
Within the boundaries of the district suit, council members are entitled to reimbursement of expenses, not including meals and mileage, but it doesn't refer to district employees as it has through the rest of it.
it should say both.
It should actually just strike out council members, because under Part C it mentions both council and employee members, and the rest 2 and 3 don't. It's just missed that.
Okay, so if we just struck it out, then it all falls under the same heading. Okay, Councillor Pearson?
Just, I have a question for that. So that when your travel emanates or concludes in Sooke, but you're going outside the district, so is that like for mileage as an example? For the purpose of travel for the district of Sooke?
Right.
It just doesn't seem to be clear to me that, so, because I put in for my mileage from here to the airport, right? From home to the airport.
But that counts. So like if we had a function here at the district.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And that's where it's within the boundary, then you wouldn't be entitled to claim your meals or your mileage.
Yeah, it just says within the district of Sooke mileage, right? That's just wanted to clarify.
Right.
I probably understand the principle, but it's just the way it was written, that's all.
No, it's a new form.
Yeah.
I think you got it. Councillor Casper, did you have a question?
On the new form on the back.
Well, I was going to move the recommendation.
Oh, okay.
Seconded.
But I'm sure there's going to be questions, but I'm going to move the recommendation.
So can we do these in a block? Rescind, adopt, and amend? I think they have to be done separately.
Yeah, no, those can be all done in one.
Okay.
That's not a problem.
Okay, so Councillor Casper's moved the recommendation. Is there a seconder?
Seconded.
Seconded by Councillor Pearson. Question. Go ahead, Councillor Casper.
So this policy does not preclude a district employee being compensated for mileage if they had to use their personal vehicle within the district.
Yeah.
Oh, it's me.
There we go. Sorry, I'm having difficulties with the mics today.
There's too many mics on.
Through your worship to Councillor Casper. So the way it's readed, and it has always read it, I guess, is that within the boundaries, you're not reimbursed for mileage, but outside the boundaries of the district of Sooke, you are. And it is, to answer Councillor Pearson's question, as soon as you leave your door to wherever it is outside the district.
So if you're, okay, go ahead. Follow-up question.
Well, no, my question was related to staff using their personal vehicle for work, because let's say our vehicles broke down or they all got used. Somebody had to go somewhere to do work. And so does the policy stop them from being reimbursed?
Through your worship to Councillor Casper, it does not. You can use your own personal vehicle. So the form even says, I believe, it should.
It should.
Yeah, mileage. I mean, it doesn't say, but it's transportation in brackets, personal or other. So we don't restrict staff that they have to use a district vehicle. We don't have enough to actually provide that, obviously. So.
Right.
Yeah.
But if I may, then I just don't want to see us have a package here that stops somebody from claiming mileage for work. That's all.
Yeah.
Just taking it from how it was read before, it says that within the boundaries, council members and staff then are entitled to reimbursement expenses, but not including meals and mileage.
So by us making the change, that will clean that up by deleting that, correct?
Mm-hmm. Like to me, the way I'm reading it is that staff wouldn't be able to claim mileage if they're working within the district boundaries, unless they're like using a corporate car or vehicle.
Councillor Ray?
Thank you, Your Worship. I understand what Councillor Casper is saying. I personally don't think any staff members using their personal vehicles because a vehicle isn't available, a business vehicle, should be assuming the cost of using their personal vehicle to do district business. I think that's what you were saying, Councillor Casper. I philosophically have a problem with that.
Yeah, so no, that's where, okay, let's say all the vehicles are taken or not available, and one of our staff had to go out to site, do building inspectors and the like. Then the way this reads, it looks like they can't claim their mileage, but they should be able to.
Yes, Your Worship. The policy's always read that way. It can certainly be changed if council wants to authorize staff to claim mileage within the district to attend a meeting.
So
Right now, we don't claim it within the district.
No, I know, like you don't claim it to come to work, but if you had to go out to site and back. So right now, employees are using their own vehicle at their own expense?
I'm getting Your Worship. We don't have many that would need that. Like most of the in-district kind of stuff is building inspectors, it's the engineering team, it's the parks team, it's the, the odd time, like if myself or our CAO, Teresa, had to go to a meeting, that you just go, you take your own car. I've never claimed mileage for that.
Where it would... It's like, I'm just thinking, if you had to go to meetings like in Sooke Point and back, you might want the ability to put that one through. But I guess in that case, you're leaving our boundary and then entering back into it and then coming all the way back. So you would be eligible. Okay. It's just, okay, that's interesting. Okay, I didn't realize, okay. Okay. Councillor Ray?
Thank you, Your Worship. Perhaps a suggestion in terms of the wording could fall along the lines that if a business vehicle is not available and staff are required to use their personal vehicle, they may claim mileage. So so it's up to them. To go from here to the Prestige and back once in 6 months, somebody might not be wanting to put the mileage claim in, but I think it should be there because we don't know what the future brings. And then I do have another comment.
Go ahead.
And it's just a comment. And it's probably because of my own personal challenges when food is provided at a function that I don't eat and that I have to go out and buy my own food. I find it challenging when there's no reimbursement for that, especially if you're gone for 5 days. And most of the food that was served, while others thought it was great at FCM, I didn't eat it. So it became very costly if I were to have to cover that all myself.
Ms. Roos?
Yeah, there is a statement at the end of the expense statement that says that expenses that are included in the policy may be forwarded to council for approval. So those are to cover circumstances such as the one you've just mentioned.
It's a weird. I think that's a difficult thing to do. I kind of agree with Councillor Ray because at some of the events they ran out of food, and what was available. Unless you want to eat all the cauliflower and the celery, that's it. You had to go out, or in some cases, even with the box lunch sets, they ran out of certain kinds, and so you're forced to have something that you may or may not want to eat, and you do have to buy something. And so fine, it's the way it is. I would be challenged, though, to make that case. Okay, now can you cover my $9 or whatever that I went out to get? Because I guess that's the way it is. It's feedback for the different events, or in some cases, sandwiches are pre-made with something that you may have an allergy or be unable to eat, and then you're sharing that publicly. I don't like all of this spreading on my sandwich. It's really a lot of personal business to share, but that's all there was. So it is. Yeah, I think there should be some. Councillor Ray, I just think that. Bring that part of forward for publicly when you are away for a lot of times that there are and things run out. It's an odd thing to bring forward.
Right. Just as a general comment, then I would just that's to cover unusual circumstances. But if you don't want to share that information, I would just put it forward on your expense claim, and the staff will do their due diligence in making sure that it is correct.
Okay, I prefer that. I mean, it is signed off by both mayor and council, and this is like for all district staff and for all councillors. So if you just think like every meeting, you know, someone is hearing because someone has a lactose intolerance, like, and can't eat their meal, and because, and even though every event allows you to note these things, they do run out, and sometimes I think it's because some items ended up being more attractive than other items. Or, you know, it should be on the honor system. And I think there's two ways of doing it. And I think if either the mayor or the acting mayor notices something that continually shows up in staff, then it can be brought forward and resolved. And I think that just let's consider someone's sensitivities and really what the use is. Is everyone comfortable with that? But I think extraordinary, like, for example, if I felt I had to take a limousine somewhere, I think that should come forward and be publicly debated as to whether or not to do that. And I would also like to state in here that I'm not expecting the district to pay my my child care fees. It was somehow twisted out there that all of you, that I convinced you all to do that. That's certainly not the case, and it's not even in here, so I do take a bit of exception to that being spread out there. It was just the dialogue came out as we're trying to attract younger women into politics. This is something that comes up, and it's something that should be done. Other municipalities are putting something forward to that effect, and that's something, if I choose to have you cover off that expense, then I'll bring that forward and we can debate it then. But it's not automatically built into this policy. Okay? Councillor Casper, then Ray, please.
Yeah, I just want to echo the comments made about what meals are supplied. I chose not to eat the breakfast that they supplied because I stay away from all bread, and for me, even lunches, there were times when I did not eat their lunch. But after saying that, you know, I did not claim for all of the meals that I guess I was entitled to, but I chose to make my claim based on what I actually consumed and didn't consume. So it is a problem by having a blanket policy because it affects everybody differently. And I know Councillor Pearson and Ray, we went out and purchased breakfast on our own, and Councillor Pearson and I did that on 2 other occasions. So, you know, these are the things that we're sort of faced with. And, you know, continental breakfast with a lot of bread just doesn't work for a lot of people. So, anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, Councillor Ray.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. And the other, I have just a question on Schedule B. It asks you what kind of vehicle type you use, compact, mid-size, minivan, crossover. Is there, like, I'm just wondering what the purpose of that is for?
Thank you. I just left it the way the form was previously, so I hadn't changed that. If you want me to take it out, I could take it out.
I would recommend that it comes out.
Sorry, through your worship. It's so we can collect.
Yeah, you're right.
Yes, I know you know the answer. It's so we can collect the carbon information for the Climate Action Rebate Incentive Program. We have to collect the type of vehicle so we can figure out how much carbon.
Okay. Then I would suggest you need big size truck on there.
Oh, so maybe just to add one, or is that even a category?
Well, if there's a purpose, and you're asking everybody what kind of vehicle they drive, because I don't check it.
I think those are the categories that the GHG emissions are stipulated to. So,
I'm surprised they don't have electric car on there. just saying. Or carpooling. But anyway, if that's the category, that makes sense then. I kind of wondered.
Your Worship, we'll check that out again, and if there needs to be truck added, we'll add it, and certainly we could even add electric if.
No, if I can, Your Worship. Yeah. I didn't understand why it was there because I drive a truck and I didn't get to tick anything. So I don't think you need it.
Well, I think it should match. Okay, Councillor Casper?
Can I redo my motion to reflect the changes that were identified after I made the motion? So I would move that...
An amendment then? Or, because we have this moved and seconded.
Right, I know, but...
We could do a friendly amendment to part 2 there where it says travel-related expenses policy as amended as per this discussion.
And I agree to that.
Perfect. Okay.
And
Good, thank
to
you.
clarify then on that, I just want to make sure that for C1 then you want to change that to have mileage included for staff. Is that correct? Okay.
Correct. Thank you. Yep. Okay. Anything further from council then? Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you very much, Ms. Rears. There's a lot of work there. Okay, updated statutory and permissive tax exemption policy. As we've kind of noted at previous ones, our deputy corporate officer is going through all of the policies and fleshing out any inconsistencies or different things as they come up. So this is our next one here. I accidentally closed this. There is a report. Any questions from staff and a recommendation to adopt?
So moved.
Move adoption by Councillor Pearson and seconded by Councillor Ray. Any discussion on the motion or any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. We have our 2016 District of Sooke annual report. Thank you, staff, for all your efforts over the past year that bring us to this point and for the report itself. We have a recommendation to post it to the website for public inspection per Section 97 of the Community Charter and to schedule consideration of public submissions at the upcoming meeting on June 26th and to publish notice of this meeting.
So moved.
That's sort of my summary of the actual motion, but I think it's all there. Moved by Councillor Pearson and seconded by Councillor Ray. Any discussion on the motion or any parts of it? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. If you turn to your yellow pages, 13.8 is the Community Development and Engagement Committee. There was just a couple of minor changes, being the name, and we also added bylaws under the role of committee topics for consideration. And then this will go out for advertisement on all the various sites there. So looking for, we can move this all together, please. Moved by Councillor Parkinson and seconded by Councillor Ray. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Berger.
Thank you. I just have a quick question. Under membership, where it shows the 6 members appointed by the mayor, I just am thinking previously we had members of the public apply and then all of council was a part of the process. Is that different for a standing committee?
Well, standing committees are formed specifically by the mayor, and if you look at the terms in the community charter, the membership has to flow from the mayor, but I will be looking for your feedback on the membership. So any further other questions? Councillor Casper?
Yes, I just hope that when we're seeking public members that there has to be some degree of experience or knowledge regarding development and or statutory bylaws or something.
We can put that in there and then look for that as part of your feedback.
Well, I would just hope that it would be an asset.
It would be an asset. So I think if we can add that to the advertisement, that we've done that with the land use applications in the past.
Yeah.
Anything else? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Our SOFI report 2016 Statement of Financial Information. Statement of Financial Information report for information. This is pretty concrete item where nothing can be changed. It's based on our audited statements and the like, so it is on the website already. So just looking for a motion to receive, please. Moved by Councillor Berger. Seconded by Councillor Pearson. Any discussion on receiving? And yes, staff will post it out. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. So that was 13.9. So we'll go over to 14.1. This is from the Committee of the Whole, that staff be directed upon recommendation from the Committee of the Whole to prepare a report for the placement of bollards on Gatewood Road to allow for temporary traffic pattern changes during events, and that the report includes recommendation for safety considerations associated with the temporary use of the Gatewood Road extension. Moved by Councillor Parkinson, seconded by Councillor Pearson. All those are questions? Councillor Berger?
Sorry, just a quick question through you to staff. But can this fall into one of our categories? Sorry for capital. Like, with it, where does the funds come from? I guess is a more poignant question.
Your Worship, through to Councillor Berger, I met with Ellen Lewis and other members of the Fall Fair, and we walked through and we've established what we can do, and we're looking for some prices now from some of the contractors. So I don't have. This is for a temporary use, not for the road. So I don't have a really good feeling for what the cost should be. It should be around maybe $4,000 by the time the dust settles. But we're still trying to get some prices together, including the installation of bollards. So I'll be coming back with a report for that anyway. So.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Any no new business? We have correspondence from correspondence from May 18th to June 7th. Move receipt by Councillor Parkinson. Seconder, and then I'll go to Councillor Ray. Seconded by Councillor Ray, and then Councillor Ray, please.
Yes, Your Worship. I'm wondering if we can remove the correspondence from May 23rd, 2017 from the Team BC Wanda Fuqua Refugee Sponsorship Committee for discussion.
Okay, yep.
Okay. The reason I asked that it be removed is that Ms. Sterling has asked if the District of Sooke would like to join the advocacy efforts by adopting a resolution. It's a fairly detailed resolution, but I'm just wondering if the District of Sooke, Mayor and Council would like to send something onwards in terms of the support, given the problems that they're having getting these refugees into Canada.
Okay, no, I think that's a good idea. So let's, we'll come back to that one. There's also been a lot of discussion about a tree protection bylaw. So I'd like to maybe just pull that one out as well. There's a, pardon me? It's May 17th and 19th. So we can just pull those out. And then, so maybe now then I'll call the question on the rest of those items, please, to receive. All those in favor of receipt? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. And so I'll go to Councillor Ray. Would you like to make a motion then that we, in regards to that resolution?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just trying to get to the paperwork. I closed my package. I didn't actually draft one. It seemed fairly lengthy in terms of the back.
What we could just do is maybe have this item returned to the next meeting.
Yes, and perhaps maybe something could be drafted to show our support. I don't know if we need all of it, but it looks fairly detailed.
There's a lot of things, so maybe staff, if we could just have this one particular, the correspondence from May 23rd come to the following meeting just on its own, just so we can review it a bit more again, please. And then a tree protection bylaw. I think that's something that is timely for. It's come up now and again, and we haven't really done anything with a tree protection bylaw in the past. But given our, I don't know if that's something that would flow out of our OCP and the environment piece there. Does anyone have any other thoughts on the matter? Add it to the list of Councillor Casper?
Well, I'm not in favor of having a tree protection bylaw, and the reason why is because I've seen this happen in other jurisdictions where as soon as it's being contemplated, and if there is any degree of seriousness being brought forward, it has a tendency to create the exact opposite effect, where somebody's going to go out and actively cut down their trees because they don't want to be held back by a bylaw. I can appreciate the concern about it, and I think we have to put it in context. This letter or the request, in my humble opinion, came as a result to the property down in Whiffenspit, where it was rumored that the property was going to have extensive tree cutting and et cetera. So our staff went and had a discussion with the owners and came away with a totally different story as to what was going to occur on that property. So yes, they are looking at doing something there, but you got to put it in context. If we had a tree protection bylaw right now, we couldn't harvest or remove all the older trees off of our property on Lot A. You have to sort of really think hard and fast about this. And it's a bit of a nagging problem, but you know what? I've been in this community for some time, and we don't have a bylaw, and I think most people actually do things in the right way, and whatever they decide to remove, they're doing so for a wide variety of purposes. And I just think that if there is the appetite, it should be done very, very cautiously, and to think about what could be the negative aspects of it. And then also, it could be viewed as, well, there's another infringement on people's property rights.
Okay. Yeah. No, it's just something to be mindful of as we go forward, right? Okay. All right. So a motion to receive the correspondence, please. Those two pieces, because we pulled them out. So moved by Councillor Ray and seconded by Councillor Casper. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Okay. So that moves us to 16.2. Petition for Gatewood Road Extension. And there's a recommendation here that Council received the petition with the 85 names petitioning for road extension on Gatewood Road from Eustis to Grant, and that Council directs staff to include as a priority for the 2018 to 2022 5-year financial plan a road extension for Gatewood Road from Eustis to Grant. Move recommendation by Councillor Parkinson, seconded by Councillor Pearson. Discussion, Councillor Ray.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I guess I have difficulties saying without looking at any of our other roads that we're going to make it a priority in the 5-year financial plan.
Okay.
I won't support it being as a priority. I think we have to examine all of the different roads that need to be done.
So what about a word change that Council directs staff to include, or that Council directs staff to examine inclusion for the 2018 to 2022 5-year road extension? Examine inclusion. We just need another A in examine. Ex-mine exclusion.
Thank you.
How's that? Is that?
I would like to remove my motion. I don't agree with that. I think that it should be one of our priorities.
Okay, your microphone isn't on, Councillor Parkinson.
I don't accept that change to the motion.
Okay.
So I think we should vote on it. I think that we have talked for years on putting that road through because of all the events that are happening at the Legion or at the community hall, and I think that this road should be a priority.
Okay, so we can vote on whether on the amendment Okay, so if we're amending this motion, that's an amendment, should I say proposed by Councillor Ray? Okay, is there a seconder for the amendment? Seconded by Councillor Berger. And speaking to the amendment, Councillor Berger.
Yes, thank you. I agree with Councillor Ray in that I don't want to make anything a priority yet without knowing the cost of it. And especially when we're looking at Eustis Road, there's only one parcel that keeps Eustis Road from attaching to the other half of Eustis Road. So, I mean, there's one parcel of agricultural land that, as we know, the Agricultural Land Reserve does support connecting transportation. So for me, I mean, as much as it's wonderful to, you know, and it's sort of a, maybe it's an easier fix, I don't know, to go to Grant through Gatewood, but I would like Eustis to connect with Eustis. So, okay. I mean, I think when we're looking at road connectivity, that would make more sense. So rather than saying that I need it to be a priority, I would like, maybe I could use the word priority for Eustis to go somewhere, but I'm not certain that Gatewood is the best idea when we've got, they both end at an agricultural piece of land. So to me, it kind of would make sense to talk to that property owner as well as the Agricultural Land Reserve to see if we can get Eustis to flow through to Eustis, then, you know, off to Codwell or Otter Point.
Okay, Councillor Ray?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. And I, in my first term, actually spoke about connecting Gatewood to Grant Road and Eustis to Eustis that comes out on Caldwell. And so I would like to, as Councillor Berger said, I'd like to look at what there is in there as well. And I think making something a priority without having the information it feels like making a decision on the fly.
Okay. Any other discussion on the amendment, Ms. Rears?
My intention here, and I didn't put it down, was to do one, the first block as one separate motion, and then the next block, I put a period there, but I didn't put the one and the two. I think it's important that Council does receive the petition, and then they can decide on the other portion if we want to do a friendly amendment to that.
Yeah, okay, so we have let's talk about examining exclusion first, just so I can kind of unwind this a bit. So I'll call the question on the word change, examine inclusion first. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Parkinson is opposed. And now we need to sever these. So can I have a motion to sever the two paragraphs? Moved by Councillor Ray and seconded by Councillor Pearson. No, but we've moved them together. So procedurally I need to sever. Okay? Motion to sever, please. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay. So now, I haven't called the question on the amended motion, though. Like, we've made an amendment, we've made a motion to sever, and now it's still this one big motion. You see what I mean? Like, there wasn't initially, though.
No, you didn't need to do this severing because you had already called the question for the first one. And what I was hoping was that Councillor Parkinson would amend her initial motion to sever at that time, but it's already been dealt with, so we're good.
Okay, so I don't need to do anything more with this? We can just move on? Okay. All right, thank you. I appreciate the parliamentarian resources. It really helps. Okay, item 17, please. Council and CAO verbal updates. Go ahead, Councillor Parkinson.
I would just like Council and the Mayor to know that invitation went out for Canada Day, and the letter should be in your mailbox, and that the parade is now starting at 12 noon instead of 1, so they've made it earlier. So.
Okay, I picked up my mail and I didn't see anything. Okay. Okay. All right, good. Thank you. Other updates from members of council? Councillor Ray?
Just to mention that I did attend FCM last week, and we'll put something together for the next reporting to outline. It's just that it's getting late, so I'd rather not.
Thank you for that, Councillor Ray. Councillor Berger?
Yes, thank you. Just give you a quick little update. I in your absence, attended the grad ceremony and gave a very short speech. I told them I wouldn't use 3 minutes because those grads have to sit there far too long in their caps. But it was a really unique experience for me, being that my son was on stage graduating. So it was a really A really great day. Thanks.
Thank you for attending on my behalf, Councillor Berger. Other members of council, would you like to wait to the next meeting to give some FCM updates? I am, but I'm asking you. No? Okay, Councillor Pearson, anything?
Just I attended the
microphone.
Sorry? I attended the Wadams Water Commission meeting, and it was on June 6th, as you know. Water's in good shape. Water Watch is in good shape. We've gone below the 98%, I think, at this point, which is significantly later than it was last year. So we're in better shape than we were last year. Watering restrictions will be on the horizon, again, as they always are, to conserve water. They passed a motion around the repair and leaking on private property and where the liabilities lie with the homeowners. They're putting together an exemption so that you can't apply for a water exemption if the leak's on your property more than one time per year. So anyways, there were some questions around when you notify and how do you find out, things like that. Other than that, pretty standard business for the Montego Water Commission.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Pearson. I'll give more updates at FCM because I forgot my notes. There was an interesting comment on water, I think, and I can't remember the stat exactly, that Canada contains 26% of the global water supply, and yet we still have people without access to fresh, clean water, and including in our community. So I thought that was interesting. I believe it was Mr. Mulcair that made that fact, but I'm not entirely sure because I don't have my notes. But there are a few outcomes that for us to give serious consideration to. One of them is our seasonal lighting display as they come. We saw some of the lighting, and I think there are other areas that we may want to light up in the community. It is important that if we do so, that we move and get our order in sooner rather than later so that we address it. So that's something I would like to see us work on in the very near future, although it's hard to think of Christmas in the summer. It's the best time to actually get what we want done in a timely fashion. The other was a very unique self-cleaning washroom that is available. It is programmable, and it requires water connection, hydro connection, sewer, or some sort of connection. But you can program this item where it has set hours where it's locked all the time. It'll actually open itself up if the door is locked. You can set how long someone can actually be in this item for. So if it goes on for a long period of time, then the door opens and the lights come on. It actually does self-clean entirely by having something where it sprays, it washes, and it dries, and then everything drains away, and it's this complete contact concrete item. They're all over, going in all over Canada, except none in BC yet. So, of course, they're very eager to get something into our community because we'd be the first in the province to do so, which means we could get a first in BC pricing point on it, and it's quite attractive, actually. And when we've looked at washrooms or had conversations about John Phillips Memorial Park is in certain need of one, as well as the boat launch. I think just the caliber of that facility, we could certainly do better than a porta potty. So I would like us to seriously look. Councillor Casper introduced me to the vendor, I suppose, the manufacturer of the product, and who gave me the real in-depth tour about how it all works. It's completely indestructible because it's been made to be vandal resistant, and it's for being a cement building, it's actually rather attractive. So just given our staff time and the challenges, even monitoring what's at Ed McGregor, it may be something we're thinking about. So I would like to work with somebody on getting some of these things done. Seasonal adornments.
Well, I would move that
microphone.
I would move that the two items that you've raised be pursued.
Okay.
And that a report be submitted in a timely fashion at a future council meeting, regarding those two items.
The lighting and the
Yes.
Yeah, on seasonal lighting and self-cleaning Washroom.
Yes.
That's great. I didn't bring any paperwork home. I just collected cards because of the weight. I always go over weight. Okay. Okay. That's been moved and seconded, I believe. Moved by Councillor Casper, seconded by Councillor Pearson. Mr. Howitt?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just would like clarification from a staff perspective exactly what kind of report you're looking for on the seasonal lighting. As you know, we bought all the seasonal adornment for Christmas last year, which we will obviously put up again this year. But is there something like more that you're looking for? Because we don't have a significant budget for anything else.
I think it's just knowing what's in the budget. I mean, I'm not sure if anything that was up last year needs to be replaced, like if everything is still working or not. And if there is room, then I think it would be neat to look at other areas of Sooke that are on the main corridor. I don't know if it's possible to do something at the entry to Sooke where our Welcome to Sooke sign is. It's kind of an isolated area, but it would be neat to have that lit up. I know that there's lighting and it's owned by Sea Park, but if there was some way of tying into the lighting there, that might be attractive. Are there other poles that have the brackets that we should be looking on main corridor areas? There was a few areas that we thought were going to be lit that ended up not being lit. The trees and all that on the kiosk were not lit last year. So that's where, was there something wrong with the electrical that's since been resolved or not? And if there is some room, I think it would be nice just every year to sort of add on. I don't think we're done yet with the seasonal adornments.
The district tree wasn't lit up.
And the district tree here wasn't lit. So that's where it's looking at what do we have in the budget, what areas, like those sorts of challenges could we examine greater? Councillor Casper?
Yes, sorry. Is it possible is it $10,000 we've got in seasonal ornamental lighting? In light item?
I think it is. But.
Through your worship, I can't remember offhand, but we'll put it in the report and see what we can do for sure for possible options.
Thank you. Councillor Pearson?
I think the original motion was that we were going to spend $10,000 per year over the next number of years because then it wouldn't be such a big bite so that we could keep updating along the way.
Yeah, and that's why I think just looking at what area, we could just take pictures and say, hey, what can be created that would work in this area, and then just to continually add on to them is just what I'd like to see. Okay, so any further questions on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed? The other part that I'm thinking about doing from FCM, there was an interesting contest where you bring a book that's written from your community, a child or teen book, and then it goes onto a shelf, and then one delegate wins all of the books for their library. And I thought that would be a really neat prize to win, given that we have a new library coming in. And of course I didn't win it. None of us did, unfortunately, but the section of books from across Canada was quite something. So I thought, well, it doesn't stop me actually from sending a request to every mayor in Canada and saying, hey, we have a new library opening. Would you consider donating a book from your community and signing it from your council to go into our community? And I thought that might be a neat Canadian section. And if some don't have one, just a local artist, and then it's celebrating Canadian literacy, Canadian authors. If someone made that request to us for a book from our community, I'm sure we would love to sign it and send it off. So that's something I'd like to just sort of follow through with afterwards. And we can give more highlights on FCM at the next meeting, because I know the time's running late. The other piece, though, is that while I was away with our medical and health facility, that continues to move on. A draft framework has been sent off, and that went to Marianne Alto, who's the chair of the Regional Hospital District Board, and there's a semi-annual Regional Hospital Board meeting. So that was brought forward by herself and CRD staff. I don't know what the outcome of that decision was, but it's just to get that discussion happening. We're waiting for concrete statistical data. So this is data that tells us how many Sooke residents are using emergency services at either hospital, for what purpose, and where these items or these calls or these service could have been prevented and resolved locally. So just getting that statistical data. I do have a meeting scheduled with VHA for later this month. If anyone is interested in attending, just let me know, okay? All right, so we will then, anything from our acting CAO?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just like to add, we're moving along with the staffing plans, and we have a engineering technologist, starting with us next Monday, I believe, on the 19th. So that's good. And we've got a corporate officer hired who will be joining us sometime in the summer, most likely early August.
That's great. Thank you. And thank you again to staff. I know that you've been carrying a big load, and just these are lengthy agendas that recognizing that the summer schedule lightens up, and there's been a lot of work in getting all of these reports to us. So very grateful for your time and your expertise in getting this all done to us. We really appreciate it. Okay, so we don't have any notice of motion, so now I'll be looking for number 19, a motion to close the meeting to the public subject to 91C, G, and